Ain't it fun living in the real world? Ain't it fun living in the real world? All right, all right. Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. We're going into the weekend. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. If you are new, I do want to let you know we are also live on Rumble as well as X and, of course, YouTube. Welcome back, guys. We have quite a bit that we're going to get into tonight. And tonight, I want you to ask yourself, is it shocking? Is it shocking? Some of these were quite shocking to me. One of them that is a good news story. It's actually a feel good story. The other one, I have so many questions about, but we have so much to get into, ladies and gents. So I hope you guys are geared up and ready for the weekend. And let's start out with some of the chats. What's going on? I know myself. J Street seems like controlled opposition rather than a legitimate alternative. Yeah. We're gonna get into that. You're on it though. You're on it. Shout out to Lighthouse says hi, Sabby. Hello. Greetings, Rosalind says thank you. Shout out to Gani says hi. Hello. Greetings, Blockbuster says hi. Shout out to Hot Chocolate. Candace Owens just reached 6 million subs. No money spent on advertising, no outside investors, no secret funding, no influencers, no selling out to Israel. Wow. Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you don't have to cave to Israel, and you don't have to have all these investors in order to grow. It goes to show you that, right? I also think, granted, people knew who Candace was already, but I also think this whole like influencer funding from Israel, I think that's on its way out. I really do. Greetings, Steinbar says, we'll be tuning in to see what Sabby says about Norm Finkelstein and Zohran. Shout out to All One Same says, embrace the 11 demands, clear demands unite us. That's right. Greetings, Silver Surfer says, peace and love, Sabby. Shout out to the Capitol says, the truth is so entertaining. Isn't it now? Shout out to Cloudness says, salute to Sabby Sabs and everyone in the chat. Be one fam. Greetings, Measured Man says, hello, tribe. Shout out to Child Hurry Sal. Child Hurry Sa. For just becoming a Sabby member. Let's give them a big whoop whoop. I'm laughing because I was thinking about that show, Bobby's mom from the cartoon Bobby's World. It was a cartoon I used to watch when I was a kid. And they were in the Midwest, and Bobby's mom had a very thick Midwestern accent. So she may say it like, instead of, oh, isn't it now? She'd be like, oh, isn't it now? Greetings, Hannah says Sabby with a smile. Shout out to Bryce says Sabs, Eric T, and comrades. Greetings, CBC voter says happy Thursday, Sabby and Eric. Shout out to Mr. Moto says E2 Finkelstein. And greetings, New York Varsity says, I like Mandami because though he ran as a Democrat, he promised to make an effort to put New Yorkers first, a city with differing ideologies. And that is why he is hated. God forbid that there is any unity. Yeah. I mean, he's moving very quickly. He's doing big things. Again, I've been proven wrong. I didn't think he would be able to accomplish these things, but here we are. I feel like every week it's a new announcement. Another campaign promise that he's fulfilling. So it's interesting to see. And greetings, Doug says hi. Okay, ladies and gents, do me a solid if you haven't done so. Smash that like button. Thank you very much. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. Okie dokie. Like I said, we have a lot to get into. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to the Sabby patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you, fam. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories here. We have the ultimate. We have Sabinators. Don't forget about the Sabsters. They're pretty cool. And we also have Sabbies as well. And last but not least, we have the members. All of their names are featured here, ladies and gents. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you. Thank you. And welcome to all. Hey. I actually just finished watching that interview with Candace Owens and Anna Kasparian. That was interesting. So you guys should check that out if you haven't seen it. I know many people have been wanting that conversation to take place. So it was pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. All right, ladies and gents, let's go ahead and show you that thumbnail so you can see what we are discussing tonight. A lot has been happening in the Middle East, of course. Big news coming this way. Tonight, we are going to discuss Iran. Yes, they did. They striked a U.S. base in Kuwait. This was a retaliatory attack, of course, to the response to the attack that came from the United States the other day. I guess they thought Iran wasn't going to respond to that, but of course they did. Of course they did. And there's something that goes along with this. This is not just about Iran. We're going to get into what former Israeli spy Jonathan Pollard just revealed, how this is also going to impact other Gulf nations as well. He basically just told you guys what the next step is for Israel. So people need to pay attention. We're also going to discuss breaking points. Krystal Ball interviewed one of the gentlemen that works with J Street, which is another pro-Israel PAC. It's basically like a liberal version of AIPAC, even though AIPAC also funds Democrats as well. And I don't know what he was thinking. I guess he thought that this interview was going to give him more support for J Street, but that is not the case. It actually made him look even worse. And I don't know. Like, I have this thing, like, I will not bring on Zionists and do this back and forth with them because I do feel like there's always someone in the audience that will listen to what they say and then probably say, you know what, they may have a point about that. And I just feel like it's propaganda. They're coming onto these shows to spew propaganda. But Krystal really checked him here. And I actually think it made J Street just look worse. We're also going to discuss, I've been waiting to talk about this till I had all my ducks in a row, and now I do. Michael Jackson's deal with Sony. We have some more information about this, a specific timeline of everything that took place with Michael Jackson and Sony and that contract. And the person who is talking about this, they believe that Sony is allegedly responsible for the death of Michael Jackson. It's getting interesting, folks. We're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Zohran just scored a big housing win for those of you that live in New York City. Again, it looks like he's moving forward with a lot of these things that he promised. I'm also going to get into the funding, where the funding is going to come from, because people have been asking those questions like, are taxpayers going to pay for this? How is this being funded? And last but not least, this one broke my heart. Norm Finkelstein issued a statement that I don't know what to make of it. I really don't. And it makes me wonder if someone got to Norm. It really does. I hope that's not the case, but I don't know what's going on there. So we're going to have to get into all of that, ladies and gents. So yeah, welcome. Welcome back. All right, ladies and gents, before we dive into the first story, again, the theme tonight is it shocking? That's the question I want you to ask yourself. Well, with this first story, I think that is not the case, but we're going to get into it anyway. Iran struck a U.S. base in Kuwait. This is a retaliatory strike to the strike that the U.S. just implemented against them just the other day. But we are not going to start with that. We're going to start with what a former Israeli spy, his name is Jonathan Pollard, what he just said is next for Israel. And I'm starting with this for a reason, because it's all connected to what Israel is doing to Lebanon right now and what Gaddafi warned us about long ago when he was still alive. This is Jonathan Pollard. He's an American-born Israeli spy. He was just interviewed recently, and everybody needs to listen to what Jonathan just said is the next step for Israel.
We don't think geostrategically. Forget about Jolani. Forget about Donald Trump. I am principally worried, first of all, for the welfare of our Druze brothers across the border, but secondarily, if Jolani and his Islamists actually reoccupy that area,
that they will.
We will have the Turks. We will have the Turks right on our border.
We eventually will, and I'm not so sure that we will have as easy a time with the Turks as we've had with the Iranians. I've been following Turkish military doctrine, and the strongest army in the Middle East.
The storm is coming.
Yes, of course. And they're a member of NATO.
And even worse, they're a member of NATO. So I look at Iran as a problem we absolutely have to finish, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Gaza, same thing, and the Hezbollah. Why am I fixated on this now? Because we have to be prepared for the next war, which will be probably against Turkey and Egypt. So
let's hope not.
I hope not also, but we, hope, you remember, it was the last demon out of Pandora's box, and there's a reason for that.
So,
Jolani,
I hope everyone heard what he just said. Again, former Israeli spy just announced that Egypt and Turkey is next. And honestly, if we go back and we look at that greater Israel plan, that pans out. That makes sense. There's no end to this. They're not stopping. This is not just about Iran. This is not just about Hezbollah. This is not just about Hamas. They are already letting you know they are next. Egypt and Turkey. Now, I say this, and I'm putting this warning out there because Erdogan in Turkey, he'll give like a strong statement against what Israel is doing, but ultimately he still aligns with Israel. He's still doing trade with Israel. He's still part of the West in that regard. Egypt was gone a long time ago. And this is the warning that we've been giving about these other Arab states in that area, that if they don't stand up and do the right thing for the Palestinians, for the Iranians, it is only a matter of time before Israel is going to come for them too. He's letting you know it's out in the open. Let's get into a little bit more about who he is before we get into those retaliatory strikes. So, Middle East Eye They're calling it out as well. Israeli spy Jonathan Pollard suggests Egypt and Turkey are next targets for war. Again, this should be national news. This should be international news. Every corporate media outlet should be screaming this at the rooftops right now. Every single one. Let's get into a little bit more about his background. Pollard spent 30 years in prison for selling U.S. secrets to Israel in 1984. He left the U.S. for Israel after his release in 2015. So this guy was selling U.S. secrets to Israel. And he continues to go on podcasts and people act like it's no big deal. No big deal. Since moving to Israel and acquiring citizenship, Pollard has been a supporter and a friend of the National Security Minister, Ben-Gvir, and has backed calls for the ethnic cleansing of occupied Palestine. Both Egypt and Turkey have enjoyed cordial relations with Israel for decades, but these have become increasingly strained in recent years over the genocide in Gaza. Another thing that we want to bring up here, don't forget, one of the emails in the Epstein files mentioned that Turkey was going to be one of the countries that they were going to target. Going all the way back. And Erdogan's just sitting back, acting like this is not a big deal, but it will be when they come for them. Turkey was the first Muslim majority country to recognize the state of Israel in 1949. And the two countries have maintained solid security and trade ties throughout most of their modern history. So here we go. Again, you see how all the criminals go to Israel? And this brings me into Iran, because I want to show you how this is all connected. Before Iran issued that retaliatory strike in Kuwait, this is what Donald Trump said in this meeting that he had recently.
That happening over a period of time.
No, the strait's going to be open to everybody.
And who would control it?
International waters. Nobody's going to control it. We're going to watch over it. We'll watch over it, but nobody's going to control it. That's part of the negotiation that we have. They would like to control it. Nobody's going to control it. It's international waters, and Oman will behave just like everybody else, so we'll have to blow them up. They understand that. They'll be fine.
Now the country of Oman. Now Oman is a target. And of course, Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth just sit right there and act like what he said is no big deal. No one is safe as long as Israel is around. No one. So all these other Arab states like Saudi Arabia, UAE, all these other nations that have been continuing to go along with Israel, none of them are safe. Iran issued those retaliatory strikes in Kuwait. They targeted a U.S. base.
Well, we have some breaking news that is coming in. Kuwait Army has said its air defenses are responding to missile and drone attacks. Well, this is after the U.S. carried out fresh strikes on Iran. Tehran said it had fired at ships in the Strait of Hormuz. In a post on X, Kuwaiti Army said air defenses are currently engaging hostile missile and drone attacks. Well, this is the latest updates that we are getting you at this hour. Kuwait's national news agency is reporting that warning sirens are being heard across the country, and the Kuwaiti military has said that air defenses are confronting hostile missiles and drone attacks. Well,
Now, at this time, there were explosions that were heard, and Kuwait's military said, okay, we're responding to these attacks that are happening.
General Staff of the Army notes that any explosion sounds heard are the result of air defense systems intercepting the hostile attacks. Well, this is what the military is saying, and everyone is requested to adhere to the security and safety instructions issued by the authorities. Well, this is the latest that we are getting in at this hour. Kuwait's army has said that its air defenses are currently responding to hostile missile and drone attacks, and the statement, which is posted on X, It says that air defense systems are engaging incoming threats. Well, this comes after US forces conducted fresh strikes on targets in Iran. An Iranian state reporting said that Iran fired on ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and at this hour, there are no independent confirmations yet about the casualties or damage. And Kuwaiti.
So at this point in time, so this happened in the wee early hours of Thursday morning, I think around 1 o'clock in the morning when these attacks happened. And at that point in time, it was just speculation. People were saying there are sounds of explosions, but Iran did hit the U.S. base in Kuwait. Again, a retaliatory attack. And I keep saying retaliatory because when I saw this segment on Fox News, they said that Iran just violated the ceasefire. But it wasn't a violation of the ceasefire when the U.S. attacked Iran the other day. So that's Kuwait. And Iran is not playing around.
Authorities have not released any further operational details. We'll be bringing you all the verified updates as soon as they are available to us.
So we have more updates since then. And it was confirmed, Al Jazeera confirms it here as well, that they did hit the U.S. base in Kuwait. Now, Kuwait was able to intercept some of those missiles. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Kuwait says it has intercepted a number of Iranian missiles and drones launched towards its territory. Qatar, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the UAE have condemned the attack, while the Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council has called it a treacherous act. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says its attack seen here was in response to U.S. strikes on its southern coastal areas near Bandar Abbas, adding it was targeting the U.S. airbase from which the attack was launched. Despite the retaliatory attacks overnight, ceasefire negotiations continue, but the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has announced further sanctions targeting Iran on Thursday. He imposed sanctions on a newly created Gulf Strait Authority, which Iran set up to manage ship navigation through the Strait of Hormuz.
This is an absurd statement here by the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, because how can you put more sanctions on Iran? So let me get this straight, ladies and gentlemen. You're just allowed to blow up their bridges, kill civilians in Iran, but they are not allowed to respond. And when they respond, now your response is, we're going to put more sanctions on you. And this is why, and I say this, the US dollar is at risk. BRICS has been looking into this for quite some time about moving away from the US dollar. And if they ever get this together and figure out how to do it, guess what's going to happen? The US government won't be able to sanction these countries anymore. You can't sanction them if they're not using the US dollar. And the US would be screwed, greatly screwed. But the audacity of this man, I'm going to put sanctions on you because you responded.
Bessent also said that any partners in the tolling of the strait would also be penalized. We begin with Patty Cohen, who's at the White House. Patty, so the U.S. announcing new sanctions on Iran, even as negotiations to end the war continue. Bring us up to speed with the latest from there.
That's right. As you know, Iran created a governmental body of sorts to control the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. has now put sanctions on that organization. And we heard from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He put on social media that any company, any individual, any group doing business with that organization could also face sanctions. Now, there's some questions about that. Obviously, how are they going to find out about those transactions if they're not run through U.S. banks, which they wouldn't be? But we do expect that the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, is going to be here in the briefing room in about 3 hours, obviously trying to send a message. And this has been a point of contention for the Trump administration. Any indication that Iran and Oman are going to control that strait, they say, is a non-starter. We even heard U.S. President Donald Trump say that he might have to bomb Oman if they got involved, to which a Democratic senator has just put on social media that is just another mistake after mistake, claiming that the Trump administration is panicking. Obviously, Oman, an ally of the United States. But this.
Let me pause here. So they are admitting this, and this is why sometimes you got to go to other sources, right? Like look at Al Jazeera, or Al Jazeera can be wrong on some things too, but you got to look at some of the international media and not just the, US corporate media for some of these things. Donald Trump's response to Oman that he will blow them up, that is a sign of panic. That is reckless behavior. And a lot of times when you start to see leaders implement reckless behavior, it is because they are scared. It is because there's some type of panic that is happening. And what has happened here with Donald Trump and the Trump administration is that they're realizing they can't really bully Iran. They can't bully them. They can't just go and grab them like they did Nicolas Maduro. They're realizing that what Benjamin Netanyahu told them, that this will be an in and out thing, is not real. Now, of course, he's not going to say that publicly because that would make him look weak in his mind, right? So he's not going to say that. But I'm saying it. This is a sign of desperation. This is a sign of panic. Oh, well, we'll just blow them up too. And to her point, Oman is an ally of the United States. This is how he's talking now. This is very reckless. This is very dangerous. But this is the path that he has led the U.S. down.
This has been a point from every administration official in this Trump White House. We heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio repeatedly saying when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, it has to be open and it has to be under international law. No one controls that strait.
All right, Patty, stay.
So no, it doesn't have to be opened. And actually, it's not international waters. Okay, so they just continue to lie, the lies that are coming from this administration. And also, there are Democrats saying the exact same thing. Iran can do that if they want to. And the fact that Donald Trump didn't think about this before he decided to go along and strike Iran in the first place, he didn't think about the fact that they could close the Strait of Hormuz. He didn't think about the fact that the Houthis, Ansar Allah, that they could close the Red Sea. That just goes to show you how far gone he is. Donald Trump is not sane at this point in time. And Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, who were sitting there just going along with him, they're all crazy. This is bad. And they're not getting this win that they thought they were going to get. And the reality is they can't beat Iran. Again, wee hours of the early morning, this was one of the strikes here. This was Fars News Agency that was reporting this. So you can see it here. While you were sleeping, they came through. And yeah, they're not going to be able to bully Iran. And this brings me back to this point in the beginning, the point about Jonathan Pollard and him saying that Egypt and Turkey is next. Guess what Benjamin Netanyahu announced? Benjamin Netanyahu announced this. Check this out. He directed the military to take over 70% of Gaza. You hear me? 70%. The Palestinians are already squished in like sardines as it is right now because Israel has at least 60%. Now he's telling them to take over 70%. And then the 70% will eventually go to 85%. And then 95%, and then 100%, and the Palestinians will be gone. That's the direction this is heading in. That's why Iran said Israel has to stop the slaughter. They are already dropping leaflets. Let me show you here. We'll come back to Gaddafi. They are dropping the leaflets in Lebanon now, in southern Lebanon. It is almost 4 a.m. here. New forced displacement orders for the city of Tyre under threat of death. This is ethnic cleansing. This is the same thing that we saw happen in Gaza. And now you see they're dropping these same leaflets in Lebanon. So they're starting to push them into smaller spaces too. Anyone who still supports Israel right now at this point in time, you're crazy. Gone are the days when you can say, well, I didn't know. You know now. Everybody knows. And so here we go with Lebanon. Now back to what Jonathan Pollard was saying when he said Turkey and Egypt is next. Gaddafi warned people about this when he was alive. Let me go ahead and bring this up here. You hear what he said? I'm going to read it to you. They are determined to remove Syria and Lebanon from the map so that Israel's borders are with Turkey. Everybody see it? And that's the plan. They want Lebanon and Syria gone. They've already gone into Syria. Now they're trying to get rid of Lebanon. And that means that Israel will have its border shared with Turkey. Then they'll go into Turkey and take over Turkey. And this is how colonialism works. They keep spreading and spreading and spreading and taking and taking and taking. This is not just about the Palestinians anymore. Anybody in that region that is not Israel is at risk. Saudi Arabia, the princes and the kings who sit up and enjoy their riches and just go along with the U.S. plan, you're not safe either. Jordan, the queen of Jordan is Palestinian. Jordan is not safe. They want all of it. All of it. Let me continue on with what Gaddafi said here. He said, I say these words and you will see it achieved not in your era, but in your children's era. And it is heading in that direction.
لكن للأسف سيتحقق أن سوريا ولبنان المخطط يقضي بإزالتها حتى تبقى حدود ما يسمى بإسرائيل مع تركيا مش مع بلاد عربية.
Yep, they're going to remove Syria and Lebanon so that the border of so-called Israel is with Turkey rather than other Arab countries. This is why they had to get rid of Gaddafi. You see why they had to come after him?
هم كاتبين إسرائيليين بلقنة البلاد العربية. يعني تفتيت بلقنة مصر، بلقنة سوريا. مصر دليل خريطة تصبح 4 دويلات.
Egypt is being mapped to become 4 states. Pay attention.
سوريا 5 دويلات صغيرة.
Syria will become 5 small states. A small Lebanon.
لبنان الصغير هذه يقسمينها إلى كومونات دويلات.
Division of nations into states, communes, and cantons.
كنتونات. هذه خريطة موجودة والكلام مكتوب.
This is an existing map and the words are written. Gaddafi knew. Gaddafi knew what they were planning and what they were going to do. And you see this happening clear as day. Now, Jonathan Pollard just said it outright. Iran knows what Israel wants to do too. The biggest hurdle that Israel has is Iran, but Iran is not willing to back down. In fact, the IRGC just said this: guards say region will not see peace until Israel is destroyed. This is coming from the IRGC. This is the statement that they gave. The IRGC said the Middle East would not see peace until Israel is destroyed, dismissing what it called Donald Trump's vision of peace as one of killing, murder, and terror. Because they know that as long as Israel is there, there will be no peace in the Middle East, that this will never be a thing. And when Israel talks about peace, their version of peace is one that they are in control of. They're the ones in control. Their idea of peace doesn't mean that Palestinians, Iranians, Syrians, Lebanese, that they get to live peacefully. The idea is that Israel and Israelis get to live peacefully because everybody else is gone, because they're the problem, even though Israel is the one that's killing everyone. Don't sleep on this. Do not sleep on what this man said. This guy, Jonathan Pollard, do not sleep on that. That is very concerning. And if I was Turkey or Egypt, that's an alarm. And they can continue to go along with the West as much as they want to with the US government. They will come for them next. He just told you. Is it shocking? Not to me. Not to me. So Everyone take note of this because they're just very bold with it now. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Thank you, Measured Man. Just to keep the party going. Thank you, Sabby, for all you do. Audience, spread the word. Not paid, LOL. Smash the likes. Thank you, Measured Man. Thank you, Malk. We really appreciate you guiding us, Sabby. Thank you so much. Thank you, Measured Man. I got cuss the fuck out on a live today about Jasmine Crockett when I said she took money from APAC, J Street, and crypto. All but then they emailed me later apologizing after attacking me in front of 10,000 people live. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't know, man. Thank you, Wasim. F off Jordan USA with Israel through Kushner and Huckabee is trying to remove your custodianship from Al-Aqsa and put it under Israel control. This is true. Thank you, Kevin. Ritter says the U.S. bases hit were what they used to launch attacks on Iran from. Yeah. Yeah. They're not hitting civilians. Thank you, Kinman. Iran alone in resistance. Thank you, Marlon. Trump is drunk with power and in desperate need of an intervention. Thank you, Resurrect. This is the Rothschilds' price for their financing. And thank you, Kenman. What happened to Ravina? I don't know. I don't know what happened to Ravina. Maybe you know something I don't. I'll get that Rumble rant and then we'll go to the next story here. All right. Thank you for the Rumble rant, Hemp Car. Gaddafi said the West creates Gaddafi said the West creates virus to sell shots. Interesting. I can't click on that because you're in Rumble, but thank you so much for that. Okay, ladies and gents, let's move on to the next story here. Let's pivot to some good news for a second, okay? Let's get some positive news in here. Look, I was wrong. I was wrong when I said that Zohran, I didn't think he would be able to get these things accomplished because not only is he getting many of his policies accomplished, but he's doing it rather quickly. He just announced a huge housing initiative for affordable housing. Now, this applies to people that make under $70,000 a year. That number is important. In Massachusetts, in the Boston area in particular, unfortunately, a lot of the affordable housing units require you make at least $100,000 a year, which just is not realistic for a lot of people. So that number is important. And people do have to understand $70,000 a year in New York City, that's not much money, right? So let's go ahead with that big announcement here. This is huge. Today, we announced the most ambitious housing plan in our city's modern history, block by block. We're building 200,000 new affordable homes. We're overhauling code enforcement. We're cracking down on bad landlords. We're creating tens of thousands of good paying jobs. We're building new paths to home ownership. We're investing $5.6 billion in NYCHA, the largest city capital investment in recent history. New York City is facing a historic housing crisis. We're pursuing a historic solution. All hands on deck, all of the above, all for New York City. So, like I said, I have never seen a mayor work this quickly. I haven't. My mayor in particular and other mayors that I've had in the past have not moved like this. And they've made a lot of promises. When Marty Walsh was mayor of Boston, he made some of these housing promises too, but he didn't do them. Then he went on to work for the Biden administration. So, Mayor Wu has made some promises, but these things are not getting done. But he's getting them done. And then some people wonder, okay, well, how are they paying for this? Where is the funding coming from? Does that mean people are taxed more? No, they're not. I'm going to show you where the funding's coming from as well. So first, let's get into this announcement here. It was on the local news.
Today, Mayor Mamdani revealed a plan he believes will help solve the city's housing crisis. It includes 200,000 affordable homes and big changes to NYCHA.
The plan builds on some reductions in red tape that city voters already approved at the polls last year. Government affairs reporter Melissa Russo joins us now with a closer look at the mayor's proposal here. Melissa.
Adam and Gilma, Mayor Mamdani looking to speed building of affordable housing in areas specifically where its creation is the most scarce, like the Upper East and Upper West Sides, to name a couple of examples. Citywide, Mamdani says his plan will build more housing than anyone has imagined would be possible for generations, everything from affordable rentals and co-ops to market rate units. Mayor Mamdani said he knows his housing plan sounds too good to be true.
I want to speak to the skeptical New Yorker because I was once the skeptical New Yorker.
Today, he announced he'll invest $22 billion in capital dollars over 5 years to build 200,000 new rent-stabilized units in the city and preserve and stabilize another 200,000 homes.
No plan of this scale has.
Let's go back to that graphic for just a second. 22 billion over 5 years, build 200,000 rent stabilized units, preserve and stabilize 200,000 homes. The rent stabilized units, that's going to be a big one too. New York City used to have like rent control for quite some time. And then, I think that kind of went away. Same thing with Boston. We had rent control. It disappeared after the 90s. They got rid of it. But this is important. This goes to show you the money is there because this isn't being funded by the taxpayers. So I'm going to show you how he got the money for it, right? So the thing is, he's doing what he said he was going to do. Now, do I think there's instances where he should go further? Absolutely. But the fact that he hasn't even been there for a year yet, he just started this year, hasn't been there for a year yet. He was able to get the money. I'm going to show you how he got the money. He was able to get the money to get these things done, right? So the reality is you got to applaud people when they do what they said they were going to do, when they're trying to actually get out there and help the people. Let's go on here.
And preserve and stabilize another 200,000 homes.
No plan of this scale has ever been imagined by a past mayor, let alone proposed.
The mayor, who has long worked on behalf of tenant rights, said he no longer views it as a binary choice between building new homes and helping tenants stay in their existing homes.
One thing became increasingly clear. There was no way to drive down housing costs without also building more housing.
He says all that building will create 30,000 good-paying jobs each year and more than 12,000 permanent jobs. The mayor promising big changes also at NYCHA.
No longer will it take more than 400 days to fix an elevator in this city.
The city today promised a $5.6 billion investment in upgrades and renovations in New York City Housing Authority developments.
After decades of disinvestment, NYCHA tenants have come to expect that no matter who is in office, they will be overlooked. Their concerns will be ignored. That ends today.
Before his announcement today, the mayor stopped to check out some recent renovations at the Wyckoff Gardens development in Gowanus. The socialist mayor acknowledging now the city cannot manage NYCHA alone. He said public housing will remain public, but along with tenant input, it will be managed, in some cases, with the help of private partners.
I believe that he needs to bring in good landlords, like bring me your skills that make your building this excellent where people don't want to move.
The mayor is not committing to hiring union labor for all this building, but he said some of the workers would be paid $40 an hour in wages and benefits.
Someone do the math for me really quick. Eric is the math person. $40 an hour, 40 hours a week. $40 an hour, 40 hours a week.
James Whalen, the president of the Real Estate Board of New York, was critical of some prearranged labor agreements with the city. He said, at a time when we need to build as much housing as possible, we question why the city would choose to make projects more expensive to build and finance through addition of costly and inflexible project labor agreements.
1,600. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. $40 an hour is pretty decent. A lot of people don't make $25 an hour.
And as the mayor continues to push for that rent freeze that he wants on stabilized units across the city, very unpopular with landlords, Mamdani said some city relief will be available for stabilized landlords who are struggling with financial distress. For instance, city help for tenants who are in arrears. Another component of the mayor's plan is a promise of better service through 311, including a new promise that beginning in October, city inspectors will investigate each and every heat complaint that comes in. Gilma?
Melissa.
Let me jump in here for just a second. I got to tell you guys, when he said the thing about the elevator, it is so true. If you haven't lived in like cities like New York, especially Boston, it's so true. A lot of those buildings are very old. And so when the elevator goes out, it's like, oh, we'll fix the elevator. 1 year later, the elevator is still not working. And a lot of the apartment buildings in Boston don't even have an elevator. So if you're like in those Fenway apartments over there near like Fenway Park, and they have like 5 floors or 6 floors, you have to walk up all those stairs if you live on the 5th or the 6th floor. But it's true. Now they said landlords, I'm going to call them the scam lords, because a lot of these scam lords and slum lords, they've been getting over for years. I know I've had them. Some of you watching me, you may have had them. I've had slum lords that I've had to deal with. They're supposed to fix things. If it's broken in the building, don't show up to fix it. We had multiple snowstorms, one after another in a row a couple of years ago. And I remember like our landlord was like, well, there's nothing I can really do. The water was coming inside the apartments. It was no longer safe to live there. So I've had my share of slum lords, and they've been getting by too easy for a long time, but they still come by to collect that rent check though. So I want to show you what he said here when he made this announcement. This was the press briefing.
Most ambitious housing plan New York City has seen for affordable housing in generations. And it will allow us to build at the scale this crisis requires by cutting red tape and providing the investment needed to break ground. We will invest $22 billion over 5 years to build 200,000 affordable homes, preserve 200,000 more, all while making it easier to build housing of all kinds across our city. To do so, we will partner with the private sector and use every tool at our disposal, including, but not limited to, direct subsidy, zoning changes, and new financing tools. We will invest nearly $5 billion in the next 2 years into HPD's new construction capital budget to subsidize projects including housing for seniors and 100% affordable housing for low-income New Yorkers. And we will pursue the meaningful zoning, regulatory, and land use reforms that will unlock our building capacity. One standout example of these reforms is the Affordable Housing Fast Track, which was overwhelmingly approved by voters last November. It will shorten the review process to make it easier to build affordable housing in the neighborhoods with the fewest affordable homes.
That's sometimes what takes the longest time, is just getting through the review process. And that's why sometimes when people say, I thought they were supposed to build more affordable housing, there's a lot of red tape that you have to go through. The zoning, and he does mention the zoning thing. The zoning issue is a big one. Like sometimes there may be land available and you could build housing there, but the zoning laws say you can't have a residential housing there. And so that's another thing that holds people up. That's another red tape issue, the zoning laws. I've dealt with that myself. It's not easy to deal with, but they were able to change those zoning laws to get this done. So you see how that works? Now, he didn't do this all by himself. I'm going to tell you where the money came from, because this is the important part. But if you can get through the red tape, yes, people can build more housing faster, and they can get these things done in a more, speedy way. But a lot of times, by the time you get through all the red tape, a year or a couple of years have gone by. And then let's say the housing is built. Then the people who are trying to get into the affordable housing, they have to go through their own red tape. And then on top of that, there's a waiting list. So it's like, I met all these requirements, but it's a 5-year waiting list. So that's another thing. And this is how people end up getting left behind. Let's continue on here.
We will also advance zoning changes, the likes of which we have already begun along White Plains Road in the Bronx and along McDonald and Coney Island Avenues in Brooklyn. These key corridors already offer ready access to trains and buses, but their development has long been limited by restrictive zoning, making it harder to build and harder to afford a home. And we will pursue further zoning changes to develop more transit-oriented development citywide. An affordable home does not mean much if you cannot get to the job that pays those bills. We will leverage city-owned land to build both 100% affordable and mixed-income housing, always utilizing the option that helps us build the most affordable housing possible. And we will accelerate these projects with tools like ELERP and the Neighborhood Builders Fast Track, which can cut 2 years off the pre-development process. We are also exploring new strategies to help.
You heard how he said 2 years? Yeah.
Developers build as much as possible. One of these strategies will develop a revolving loan fund for shovel-ready developments that need a little extra help to find that financing. Finally, we will reduce operations costs for existing affordable housing providers by investing $100 million to back a new, lower-cost insurance program in 2027. These are a lot of changes, but each of them matters. We are here just down the street from Hallett's North, where both market rate and affordable homes will soon rise. 4 years ago, Councilmember Caban recognized the need for more housing, even at a time when many in our city did not. She made the necessary rezoning happen, fighting for deeper affordability and more family-sized apartments along the way. She laid that foundation, and now we build on it. We know from other cities the difference that thoughtful planning, careful zoning, and direct municipal financing can make. Vienna, Austin, Minneapolis, Seattle, and Auckland. Let the lessons other cities have learned guide our future. Let our size be our strength. Let us implement these policies at scale. Let the largest city in the nation deliver the largest housing transformation this country has ever seen. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, let me tell you where he got the money, because this is the part some people may be surprised by, right? So let's go ahead and get into this part here. Zohran Mamdani unveils $28 billion housing plan that could define his time in office. So let's just get to the money, because people are asking, how are they paying for this? Is it tax money? Where did it come from? No, it's not taxpayer money. Let me get to the part here. Sorry, guys. I thought I had this. Here we go. All right. Remember this? Let me highlight this here. Oh, the highlighter doesn't work here. That's fine. Remember this? In February, Mamdani visited the White House to pitch Donald Trump directly on providing $21 billion in federal grant funding for a housing project in Queens, Sunnyside Yard, where 12,000 affordable homes could be built. Mamdani's pitch included presenting Trump with a recreated copy of the famous 1975 issue of the New York Daily News with President Gerald Ford and the headline, "Ford to City, Drop Dead." This cover featured the headline, "Trump to City, Let's Build." Do you hear this? So some of the money right here, $21 billion in federal grants, some of the money came from the federal government. So when some people were upset that he was meeting with Donald Trump, he went there to get something. He didn't go there just to be chummy. He went there to get federal money to try to implement some of these policies. Now, let me tell you something. If you pay attention, notice you don't hear Donald Trump saying this. Notice Donald Trump hasn't said anything about this. This was kind of just done under the table. And yeah, I met with Zohran, and Donald Trump said that he liked him, but he didn't go into details about what he gave him. And the reason why he didn't put that out in the open is because if he did, then of course, I think a lot of Trump supporters would have been like, that's socialism. But what that shows you is that Donald Trump was all talk. Because when push came to shove and Zohran was in his face and he said, I would like we need federal funding to get these things done, Trump handed over the money. See how they don't tell you everything? Now, let me tell you where the rest of the money came from. And this is directly on the site, Housing by and for New York. If you just go down here to where it talks about how they're going to pay for this. Let's make sure I get how they're going to fund it. Make this bigger for you guys here. Whoopsie. We will fund this through number one, municipal bonds. Zohran will allocate 70 billion new capital dollars in the city 10-year capital plan to create new affordable housing. Municipal bonds is one way. Two, activation of city-owned land and buildings, using the city's public land as a source of subsidy with numerous opportunities to build. And the last one was pooled rental assistance. From a lack of available affordable supply to widespread source of income discrimination, the city's voucher utilization rates are tremendously low. Just 53% in 2022 for Section 8 and 21% for City FHEPS from 2019 to 2023. We can use this existing subsidy more efficiently by pooling individual rental assistance and providing project-based operating assistance to buildings that can then reliably use the stable income streams while providing very low rent. And ladies and gentlemen, that's how he paid for it. And that just goes to show you other mayors could do the same thing. Is it shocking? I was actually pretty shocked because I told you at the beginning, I said I didn't think he was going to be able to get these things done because of who he would have to go through. Governor Hochul, Donald Trump, but he has been able to get those things done. So my thing is this, it's been a long time since I've seen a politician actually do what they said they were going to do. It's been a long time. That includes the local ones too. So he's moving forward with the housing affordability plan. They already got the money, which is the most important part. And for those of you in New York, good luck. I wish you the best and keep me updated and we'll just have to see how it goes. But yeah, he's doing what he said he was going to do. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. All right. AJ said it's a pain because perfectly usable property not being utilized. Yeah, it happens here too. It's like I said, the review process is so long and extensive that we have affordable housing units in Boston that are empty. They're just empty because people can't even get through the review process to get in there. Or they don't meet the $100,000, salary requirement, which is crazy when you think about that. The $100,000, that's crazy. Terry said it takes more than one person to make change. This is true. Shout out to Clarissa for becoming been a member for 13 months. If I could, I would move to New York. Oh, Clarissa, I live there. It's expensive as hell. The best thing I can say for you, Eric, can we go to part 2? Type VNC. The best thing I can say to you is this. If you do go to New York, go there, make your money and get out. That's the best thing I tell you, because it's so hard to save money there because everything's so expensive, like everything. Okay, let's get to this story. Oh my God. I really appreciate a lot that I've learned from Norm Finkelstein. Norm Finkelstein has educated me a lot, not just on Israel, also Gaza, and I appreciate all his work with that effort, which is why it's unfortunate that I am saddened by the statement that Norm Finkelstein just recently gave. And I'm a little bit confused. And maybe you guys can help me figure out what is going on here. So here's the statement that was put out, and we'll get into the interview so you'll get to see what he's saying here. This was shared on Twitter, and I think Norm Finkelstein has someone else run his Twitter account, but he said the sinister plot behind the far right's shift on Israel. Norm Finkelstein interview. And as you'll notice here from the picture, it says this is dangerous. And it has Tucker Carlson here, and it also has Candace Owens. Now, before we get into this, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I saw the full interview. And I'm confused. I don't know if someone got to Norm. I don't understand what's happening here. And I don't understand how this helps the Palestinian people. So without further ado, let's get into it. Peter Dow said this. He watched it as well. I listened to the whole interview and I encourage you to do the same. Among other things, Finkelstein defends Israel against claims that it controls Trump or the US. He mocks those who say Israel has Epstein dirt on Trump. He ridicules the idea that Israel has anything to do with the Kennedy assassination. Let's go to the first part. I'm actually going to increase the speed on this because Norm can talk. And let's get into it.
But now suddenly it's become a right-wing cause. The main exponents of criticism of Israel, the left no longer has any salience because it has no salience in the podcast world whatsoever. The closest thing to a left person in the podcast world, it's only one. It's Mehdi Hassan, and he's not even a left. He's not a person of the left by any stretch of the imagination. He's just, he's articulate, but he's just a curse. He goes which way the wind blows. And in the UK, he joined the struggle against anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. When Jeremy Corbyn was there, he teamed up with, of all people, Jonathan Friedman from the Guardian, wrote a joint letter with Friedman and talked about, And then in New York, or I should say in the US, he was supporting Mamdani against the charges of anti-Semitism. He just blows with the wind. He assesses the political forces, and he just goes with whichever way the wind is blowing.
So let's just take this part first before he gets to the conservative podcasters. What I found here to be very odd was that he said this conversation doesn't exist in the left podcast space. Let me know if I'm understanding that correctly, but that's kind of what I heard. And he said it only seems to exist with Mehdi Hassan, that Mehdi is the only one, apparently. Then he goes on to say, but Mehdi isn't really left. He goes which way the wind blows. So here's my question. So we're just not counting Katie Halper. We're not counting the Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate. We're not counting Brianna Joy Gray, Abby Martin. I mean, I just named at least 4 people on the left that do podcasts and more who have constantly talked about the Palestinian people and what Israel is doing. Katie Halper and Brianna Joy Gray got fired from Rising for doing just that. That's why they lost their jobs. I'm confused. Norm Finkelstein has been on Katie Halper's show multiple times. He's been on Brianna Joy Gray's show multiple times. He's been on the Gray Zone. He's spoken with, someone mentioned Wally Rashid. There's a number of people. I don't expect him to mention me, but he's only been on this show twice. But Katie Halper right now is coming very close up to 500,000 subscribers. And it's just weird to me that the people whose show he goes on the most, he couldn't seem to think of when he was talking about this conversation existing on the left. The only person that came to his mind is Mehdi Hassan. Then he says Mehdi's not left. So I'm really confused. I'm really confused. Let's go on more.
And he's the only person, even remotely of the left in the podcast world. And so all the leading and sharp critics of Israel are now the right wing. It's Tucker Carlson, it's Candace Owens, it's Megyn Kelly, it's what's his name, Joe Kent. It's all right wingers. And so you have to ask the question, if national liberation, human suffering, oppressed people's right to self-determination of people, if that's not their animating impulse, because those are left-wing slogans and political agendas, what is?
Someone mentioned maybe he's referring to mainstream people, not independent. No, Mehdi's independent. I mean, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand what's going on. But to push back on this, no, it's not true that this conversation only takes place on the right. I mean, if you look at the Gray Zones channel, they talk about Israel every week. That's all they're pretty much talking about is Israel. I think they talked about Venezuela after Maduro was captured, but most of the content on the Gray Zone has been about Israel or Gaza or Lebanon or the West Bank. Like, they're constantly talking about those things. Abby Martin just made another documentary, from what I understand, about this issue. These people go onto multiple podcasts, like everywhere, talking about this issue. Max Blumenthal has given numerous speeches and lectures about this issue. So I don't understand what's happening here and why it's that, like, all of a sudden those people are just they're not there. Let's continue on.
Why did they suddenly become obsessed? You know, you listen to Tucker Carlson now, there's barely a conversation which is not about Israel. Why did they suddenly become obsessed with that? And I consider that a troubling development, because it's very easy to imagine a Tucker Carlson running for president in 2028 on the platform of the real America first, because now he's saying Trump abandoned that slogan. He's betrayed his campaign promises. A campaign platform of the real America first and the wire pullers who are controlling our country. Those outsiders with internal support, what was called, beginning with the Spanish Civil War, they were called the fifth column. There were 4 columns of troops who were marching on Madrid. Those who wanted to overthrow Franco's people, who wanted to overthrow the Spanish Republic. And then it was said by the loyalists, those who were loyal to Spain, the Republic, they said there's a 5th column inside Madrid, the 5th column. And now Jews here in the US are the 5th column, working with the wire pullers in Israel who control the Trump administration because they have secret information on him and Epstein. And according to Tucker Carlson, literally, this is not hyperbole, Tucker Carlson says, Trump, poor Trump, he's sweating at night. He's being blackmailed with the Epstein files.
So Tucker Carlson is not the only person. That's not just a right-wing thinking point. There are many of us that think that Donald Trump has been blackmailed. Donald Trump is all throughout. I don't know if Norm looked at the Epstein files, but Donald Trump's name is in there the most from what I saw. It don't look too good for Donald Trump. But I think it's just it. I guess, let me answer this question. When he said, why are they all of a sudden talking about it? So, one, those people, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Megyn Kelly, came from that America First movement. They wanted America to be put first. That's what they come from. When Donald Trump got into office and they saw, like, obviously he was reneging on many of his promises, the economy's in the puts, you know, and they see all this money going to Israel and all this aid going to Israel. So those people are like, wait a minute, I thought it was supposed to be America first. That's part of it. But 2, even if we want to touch on the America first part, we do have to remember it's not all of a sudden for all of them. Candace first started pushing back on this issue when she was still working for the Daily Wire. Norm knows that because he was one of the people she interviewed about this. That's when she was still with the Daily Wire. That's why she got fired. So she was the first one. And she did that. That was under the Biden administration. So that was before Donald Trump won. Now, Megan, Johnny come lately. Megan came late. I don't know what Megan wanted to do. Megan came late. Tucker came around after he was fired from Fox News. So I can understand, maybe with Megan and somewhat with Tucker, people asking, okay, why are they all of a sudden getting it now? But Candace did step out first. Like, let's not forget, she stepped out when she was still working with the Daily Wire, and it cost her her job. So, but Norm knows that. And I think that's what kind of bothered me a little bit with the statement. That's what I just don't understand, because it was his interview and the interview that she had with the rabbi that's when they really started pushing her. She brought on Norm Finkelstein, and he gave the Palestine perspective. He was given the perspective and the details of how people were being treated in Gaza. She brought on that rabbi, and she was, taking notes during that interview, and he got snippy with her and everything. And I guess the whole thing was like, you brought on Norm Finkelstein, so now you got to talk to one of the rabbis. And they fired her. So let's go on a little bit more here. Oh boy, I don't know, man.
By Israel. I don't recall he explicitly saying the Epstein files, but he says others have said it, obviously. He's being, I know a lot of people on the left is completely bonkers at this point. I mean, it's not really a left. You're talking about the historic left, it has nothing to do with it. So it's very easy to imagine the real America first with those trees and his American Jews working hand in glove with the wire pullers in Israel. That could take off. That could take off. You know what's the biggest problem, my friend or comrade? The biggest problem is a lot of what Trump says is true. That's the problem. American Jews carried on, especially as a minority. Now, I'm not saying as a minority you're obliged to tone it down. No. But you have to recognize Jews, they're 2% of the American people, less than 2%. That puts you in a precarious position. The Jewish leadership carried on a completely irresponsible, completely brazen, flagrant way. They got so carried away with themselves, what Stalin famously called, in a very bad choice of expressions, in 1930 during the collectivization of Russia, which was very brutal.
He gets into a lot of details here. Now, one thing I will say is this. Norm Finkelstein, I think he still supports this today, he said that he does not condemn Hamas. He said, I cannot condemn them because of, what Israel has done to them and to their population. Now, that's important because we're going to get to the next part of this that I want to get into as well, because I was just surprised that this came from him.
The encampments were crushed under Biden.
True.
It was spring 2024. Trump wasn't in the White House. Trump exacerbated it for sure. True. And he widened the target to include all the woke disciplines. That's for sure. But the core, the hardcore, no, it was not Trump. So when Tucker Carlson complains about the stifling of free speech, when it comes to Israel and Palestine and being accused of being an anti-Semite the moment you criticize Israel, he's right. When he says the Israelis control the United States, I don't think that's true. I don't think there's any evidence for it. But the problem is when you have a guru, a cult leader, which Tucker Carlson has become, people don't disaggregate. They don't say he was right about this, he was right about that, but that's completely crazy. So Tucker Carlson says that Israel dragged the United States into a war because it wanted to destroy Israel, destroy the U.S. Israel dragged the U.S. into the Iran war because it wanted to destroy the U.S. because Israel wants to make a alliance with India. India. Where did this come from? Mm-hmm. But people don't disaggregate.
Let me comment on that part right there. So one of the things this is a real interview. I don't know why people think that. Like, it's an actual interview that Norm Finkelstein had. In fact, you can see it here. It's on the channel Politics Joe. This is a real interview that took place. So one of the things I do want to say about the audience agreeing, right? There are some that just support the cult of personality, right? Like they support a personality. So no matter what that person says, they may just nod and agree with it. There's some. My audience isn't like that. Like, you guys agree with me, you tell me. I mean, we have call-ins once a week. You guys agree with me on some things, you disagree with me on other things. That's totally cool. I don't agree with anybody on every single thing. But I think what he may be saying here is that there are some people who are watching him and they say, well, he said it, so I believe it, so it's true, instead of, okay, well, he said this and he's right about that, but he's actually wrong about this thing. I think that's what he's saying here. But to add to that part, I will say this. The reason why I think it matters that you do have people like Candace and Tucker, and I guess now Megan, giving this message about Israel to their viewers is because some people, because of what he just said, there are some people that watch Tucker Carlson that may only watch Tucker Carlson. There are some people that watch Candace that may only watch Candace. And then all of a sudden, when they hear them say, listen, this is what they're doing to the Palestinian kids. This is what Israel is doing, they're killing civilians in Iran. They're killing civilians in Lebanon. This is what Israel really is. And this is what Israel is doing. Some people are more willing to look deeper and listen if it comes from someone on their side, whether we agree with it or not. So there are some people who they may only listen to it if it's coming from someone that's part of their political ideology. This isn't just a conservative thing. This happens on the left too. Sometimes they have to be the ones to deliver that message to their viewers instead of me trying to do it. Because what tends to happen sometimes is that if you go into those spaces and let's say you tried it, let's say it was me trying to deliver that message. Well, as soon as it's like, oh, well, she's a lefty, then it's like, oh, she's a radical lefty. Let's just ignore everything that she says. Let's not listen. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes they need to hear it from someone on their side of the aisle. So I don't see that as a negative. I was very confused when he said that it's dangerous. Like, that's what it says on the thumbnail. This is dangerous. He sees it as a dangerous thing. But he did. I'm going to show you something. Because he didn't think it was dangerous before. Let me go on.
Take it as a full package. If he's right about this, right about this, right about this, he must be right about this, and this.
Yeah.
The same thing with Candace Owens.
So where does that?
So it's become a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe it's a problem.
And
I have many arguments with comrades. Of course Israel killed Kennedy. Yeah, Israel killed Kennedy. Did Israel kill Lincoln?
So then he gets into the Kennedy thing, but that did not come from the right. The very first person that I brought on the show to talk about the JFK issue is not right wing. That's Ken McCarthy. You've seen him on the show before. He wrote books about this. So Ken isn't on the right. Ken is on the left. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, some of these things I think that he think is only coming from the right. It's not only coming from the right. People have had speculations and all types of different theories about the assassination of JFK. And what we see with a lot of these files, the information that was released, they did redact things that involved Israel. And when you do look into the fact that JFK wanted to visit Israel and look at that nuclear program, and then all of a sudden he was off. I mean, come on, man. The documents are right there that's public for everybody to see. This is my concern. I think that Norm thinks all of these, he'll probably call them conspiracies, that all of these things are coming from the right, and they're not. And that's what worries me. Now, I also have a question, because to this point, let me show you something here. We'll go back to this picture. this is dangerous. And I know this isn't the first time. I saw him mentioning this on Bad Faith podcast to Bree too. So if it's dangerous, why didn't Norm say this when he interviewed with Candace Owens? Norm Finkelstein has sat down with Candace twice. One was virtual. That was the first one when she was still with the Daily Wire. The second time was in Candace Owens' house. In fact, I'll show you here. Let's go to it. This was just 6 months ago. It was Candace Owens and Norm Finkelstein. Norm Finkelstein was at Candace's house. So the date for this, again, 6 months ago. This wasn't 2-3 years ago. This was just 6 months ago. Now, let's see if he seems to be happy to be there.
October 7th took place, and I remember immediately after there was sort of this peer pressure campaign to get everybody to make a statement about what had happened in Israel. And frankly, I was happy to make a statement about how tragic those events were, but I couldn't actually make a statement regarding why these events took place. I didn't know what had happened prior to that day. I didn't know the history of the modern state of Israel. And when I began what I would call an honest inquiry into the history of the modern state of Israel, I felt that I was basically in a pressure cooker. People that I thought were my friends were telling me not to pursue this route. I didn't comprehend what they meant when they said not to pursue this route. They were calling me names, saying that I was flirting with anti-Semitism by wanting to read books and speak to people that were on the opposite side of that issue. And I got into a lot of trouble, and I mean a lot of trouble, from people that I thought were my friends when I hosted the person who is now sitting across from me, Norm Finkelstein, on my previous show. And the things that he told me about Gaza were shocking. It was especially shocking because this wasn't from someone that they could easily describe as anti-Semitic, giving us history, which he's going to tell you about today. Very important discussion. And he's also an individual that I thought, quite strangely, none of the people who were peer pressuring me were willing to debate. If Norm Finkelstein is wrong, and he could be, why wouldn't the most prominent voices of the pro-Israel debate be willing to sit down with him and have that discussion? We're going to figure out why. Norm Finkelstein, welcome to my show. Actually, mine, totally owned by me. I can host you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on the show.
So this is the question that I have. Norm Finkelstein sat down with Candace twice. He went to her. Everybody knows, again, this is not a secret. Candace makes it very clear that she films outside of her inside her house for her show. So Norm Finkelstein went there in person. Norm Finkelstein left New York City and went all the way to Nashville, Tennessee, that area somewhere, and went to sit across from Candace Owens to do this interview. If Norm Finkelstein has such a problem with this type of coalition, or the fact that her and Tucker and Megan, all of them, are talking about this issue now, even though Candace was doing this a couple years ago when she was still with the Daily Wire, why didn't he say that? I saw the interview. Why didn't he bring that up then? Why did he go there? If he felt as though that this is not genuine, or whatever you think about it, if he had a problem with her suddenly talking about it, why did he go there? That's my question. So to me, it gives me these weird vibes, because it kind of reminds me of, like, people do this shit sometimes. I don't know if this is like an academic thing or not, but it's like people will sit down with you, they'll have a conversation with you, and when they're there with you, all these issues, any of this stuff they could bring up if they want to, but they choose not to. And then it's kind of like, here it is time down the road, and it's like, well, this is how I really feel about them. Why didn't you say that? When you were invited for this interview, why didn't you say, no, I actually think you talking about this is dangerous. I don't know why you're talking about it now, and I'm not going to do that. And that's the question some people are asking, like, what is going on here? And it makes me wonder, look, Norm can have his opinions. Like if he doesn't, I don't know any of those people. So don't come to me. I don't know any of them, never met any of them. But I go back to his anti-BDS statement. And it kind of makes me wonder, Noam Chomsky did the same thing. It's weird because as much as Norm has said he does not condemn Hamas, as much as he has like talked, a lot of crap about Israel, then I go back to that BDS doesn't know, I'm not no BDS. For those who don't know, BDS is boycott, divest, and sanction. It is one of the more powerful ways that you can get back at Israel, and it's a non-violent way to get back at Israel. Boycott, divest, and sanction. Norm doesn't support it. Why? I've had this question for quite some time. I don't understand this. Why he doesn't support this. Now, he's only been on this show twice. That was quite some time ago. And then I found out that he didn't support BDS after the last time he came on the show. And I was surprised by that. I'm like, why would you not support that? So I don't understand what's going on. It almost makes me feel like somebody got to Norm. Maybe it's an academic thing because it was a similar thing with Noam Chomsky. It's like they'll criticize Israel. They'll tell you what Israel's doing wrong. Norm even go as far as to say that he does not condemn Hamas, right? But then my question is then, why is it when we talk about economic punishment towards Israel, why are you against that? All these other countries have been sanctioned. Iran has been sanctioned. Syria had sanctions. Palestinians are occupied. I mean, but why is it when it comes to that one thing? No. Don't hurt them economically. Why? So it's disappointing. Now, people, if you want to build coalitions with people, you can build with who you want to build with. But it almost kind of seems like this is only something that he wants to exist on the left. And what I want people to understand is that, especially when it comes to Israel and what is happening in the Middle East, stop looking at that as a left-right issue. It's a humanitarian issue. Everybody should be outraged that they're killing babies. Everybody. Israel just bombed babies last night in Gaza. Everyone should be outraged at that. And people need to stop looking at that as a left-right issue. That's part of the problem. Does he have to trust them? No. Do you have to trust them? No. But to me, this felt like gatekeeping. And you guys know how I feel about that. I do not like the gatekeeping. I talk to different people with different views, with different beliefs and different ideologies, because that's my real life. None of us, I don't know about you, but I don't live in a bubble. Everyone around me don't have the same political views as me. In fact, a lot of them don't, even right here in Massachusetts. A lot of the people here right outside of Boston, a lot of them do not support the policies that I support. As popular as we think they are, a lot of them don't. When I start talking about, everybody should have healthcare, universal healthcare, we need housing for everybody. When I start talking to everyday people about that, a lot of them don't support it. And when people get out of these spaces and get offline and talk to people in person, you'll see how people really feel. So to me, it's just kind of, I don't know. I feel disappointed. I really do. Because I feel like had it not been for them, maybe more so Candace than the others, had it not been for them saying, no, this is not right to their viewers. And Candace said her audience is mixed now, but at the time, Candace's audience was conservative. If she did not deliver that message to her viewers, maybe you may not have as many people on the right now feeling the way that they do about Israel. But I feel like sometimes from these academics, it's like they just want to keep things in the left space. They don't want it to go further than that. And then that kind of makes me think, so you don't want it to get bigger. And if you don't want it to get bigger, then do you really want change? So I don't know. I don't know. I was shocked. That was disappointing to see. A number of people did comment. I think I have some comments here. Let me bring this up here. And again, I don't think Norm runs his Twitter account, but I want to show you some of the things that people said. Michael said, "You've turned out to be a huge disappointment. As if right wing means anything. You're nothing but controlled opposition." This is Michael Rechtenwald. He's the one that founded Azapac to stop, to be a counter to pro-Israel lobby. Dr. Rama says, "Who cares about Israel? Not Palestinians, not decent humans. We don't need gatekeepers. We especially don't need those breaking rank from the oppressor, dictating the support base for anti-Zionism." Yeah, I saw some of these comments. Syrian Girl said, "The left don't want everyone to support Palestine. They want to control the Palestinian cause." Israel Exposed said, "Love you, Norm, but we disagree on this point. Fuck Israel, and we welcome anyone from any side that wakes up their crimes." Here's a question. Has anyone ever asked, like, the Palestinians what they want? All these academics saying how you should move, who you should organize with, how you should work. Has anybody stopped and asked Palestinians what they want? Anybody? What do they want us to do? Who do they want us to talk to about this issue? Maybe I have some bias here because I worked with faculty for years, and I'm just here to tell you, there be a lot of gatekeeping. And a lot of times it seems like these academics is like, if you're not on their level, if you don't have a PhD like them and you're just not on their level, they don't really see you as knowledgeable. Sometimes they may feel like they don't really need to hear what you have to say because you haven't done the research they've done. You don't have the credentials that they've done. Oh yeah, I worked with these people for years. So maybe I have some bias in that point. But I think the question really should be, what do the Palestinians want you to do? Let's go to some of the comments, ladies and gents. Hey. All right. Thank you, Alessandro. Wikipedia describes the gray zone as far left and far right. Wikipedia, I know they tried to get that page taken down. That page is all over the place. Thank you, Marvin. Remember Matt Taibbi called out Zios and then, got to him. They got to him. Oh boy. Thank you, Kevin. Maybe Norm is concerned about the tinfoil hat aspect of some alt media and anti-imperialists. Everything he mentioned equals unproven conspiracy theories. Maybe, I don't know. Nubler says mainstream left, maybe, but I mean, Mehdi's not even Mehdi left it's been 2 years now. Maybe, I don't know. Thank you, Kenman. Remember that Norm does not support BDS. Yeah, that was still always weird to me. Thank you, Angry. You can't trust Jay. They play both sides. I don't think we should give generalizations here. Alex, you are very bright and your work is important. We need brains like you to avoid being gaslit by the news. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Kevin. Norm thinks BDS will hurt in advent Palestine. I don't think it's just that. I'm sorry. Like, I really don't. Thank you, Cicero. Finkelstein is juice. They never deviate from the Talmudic faith. I do not trust them no matter how much they make themselves look aligned. Again, I don't think we should be making generalizations here. But he just sounds different to me. And I was kind of surprised by that. I really was. Let's go to the next one here. Okay, this one's a good one. Yeah, this is good. Okay, ladies and gents, this is hilarious. So, the founder of J Street. So, for those who are not aware, J Street is the liberal version of, I guess, AIPAC in a way. They mainly fund Democrat candidates, pro-Israel, PAC, same thing there. But for whatever reason, he thought that he would come on to Breaking Points and this would go well for him. I see this as panic. I think he went on to Breaking Points because, again, they're losing a little bit of that narrative there, right? Like a lot of people are moving away from Israel, especially here in the United States. And so I feel like he went on to Breaking Points to try to like state his cause for the reason why J Street is better than AIPAC and why you should just basically accept some soft Zionism. And it did not go well for him. Let's go ahead and bring it in here. So this is Krystal and Ryan. This is hilarious.
So, Jeremy, let's dig into that a little bit more and what you mean when you say that you support a Jewish homeland, because this really gets to the rub of why, in my view, it's very dissonant to hear the term liberal Zionist, because liberal would indicate you support equal rights for all, you support, civil rights, equality, human rights, etc. And the expression of, a Jewish homeland or a Jewish state is a sort of ethno-supremacist expression, where the moment that there are too many Palestinians, you have a demographic problem, because we can't possibly have, a Palestinian or a Muslim or an Arab majority here, because that will destroy our whole state. And so what I'm wondering how you square the circle of being, a progressive who does support equality on, matters here domestically, but also supports this ethno-supremacist state of Israel.
So the word that I try to push back on would be ethno-supremacist. The concept of Israel when it was founded was to be a place where Jews around the world who had been living stateless for 1,800 years and had suffered through, whether it was the pogroms in Russia or the Inquisition in Spain or the Holocaust in Germany. I mean, just a litany of a history. The idea that there should be one place on the planet where the Jewish people can claim citizenship because of who they are. That is what the state of Israel was founded on. The people who founded the state of Israel, of course, were by and large socialist, right? I mean, it was a very left of center place, and the ideals of socialism and the ideals of creating a Jewish home coexisted in the state. And
stop. So here's the thing. It was founded on Zionism. It was founded by, Theodore Herzl, who's the father of Zionism. It was the British who said this is going to be the place where they are going to go to, assuming or telling people that it's open, it's vacant. But there were already people that were living there. There are Palestinians who were living there, and there were already some Jewish people that were living there. So then they came in and decided, again, going by what Zionism means, that the other people can't be there, they got to go. Then that's how you get to the Nakba. So the whole plan of it was wrapped up in Zionism. And he's not going to tell you that.
it was, really the dominant ideology. It is not per se that right-wing ethno-nationalists like Bibi Netanyahu, Itamar Ben-Gvir, Bezalel Smotrich, the ambassador here in the U.S., Yahiel Leiter, it is not a given that is the kind of people that will govern the state of Israel. And so
but I'm sorry, but it's not just about who governs the state of Israel, because the point is the Nakba happened before Benjamin Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir were all in government. The Nakba happened prior to that. And if you look at what Theodore Herzl believed, this idea of Zionism, it was only supposed to be for them. So the plan was to always get the Palestinian people out. That was the whole point.
But doesn't that become a sort of inevitability once the core of your project is we must maintain a Jewish majority. I mean, Israel de facto has control over, from the river to the sea, as you would say, over the West Bank. I mean, if you're Palestinian living in the West Bank, your day-to-day life is structured by what the Israeli government is going to allow you to do and what it's not. Israel has taken over 60% of the Gaza Strip, and Netanyahu is threatening to take over the rest of it. And once again, if you live in the Gaza Strip, even in that part that hasn't been taken over, your day-to-day life is structured by what the Israeli government says you can do and where you can go and how you can live. So there is de facto control from the river to the sea. But the suppression and the apartheid and the demographic engineering that occurs through mass murder and ethnic cleansing is necessitated by the idea that we must have a Jewish majority. And so doesn't it end up being inevitable that you have this sort of, genocidal, right-wing, ethnic supremacist government if that's the core ideal at the center of the state?
Oh my God. Oh boy. I told you, I don't know what he was thinking, why he decided to do this interview.
I don't agree. We probably just won't see eye to eye on that. The problem for Israel is that if it insists on keeping all the land, which the right wing is insisting, right, to be from the river to the sea and to annex and take over all of the land, then you have 15 million people that live in that land, and a little bit less than half of them are Jewish. So you actually cause a bigger problem for those who want to have a national homeland of the Jewish people if you keep all the land. The only way, actually, for there to be a state that is Jewish in nature and democratic and provides rights to all of its citizens, and to have Palestinian people have their rights, is for there to be a division of the land, for there to be some of that land, and the numbers are 78-22 as the split between Israel and Palestine that's been on the table since 1967.
Stop. Did you hear the numbers he just gave? Like 70 to 22%? Why do the Palestinians get 22% of the land? Why? And then the whole thing here about, well, he said, well, the only way this can work is if there's, a portion of the land for the Palestinians, a portion of it. So what he's telling you is he doesn't support equality. The reality is it should be one state. It should be one state. And everybody should have equal rights under the law. But what he doesn't even realize this. As he's talking, he's letting you know that, no, they need to be separate. So he's still supporting the supremacy. And then when he talks about the percentages, he's still, again, who gets the majority? Israel will get the majority of the land. And this guy comes on breaking points to basically peddle soft Zionism. That's what this is. And trying to convince people, hey, if J Street gives money to a Democrat politician, we're okay because we're not like those other guys over there, AIPAC. No, you're still pro-Israel. And I'm in the firm camp, and, people have different opinions about this, but I'm in the firm camp. Israel should not exist. They still want it to be there. This is why some of these people, this is why they still support money going to Israel. This is why they say, well, no, we can't do that because we can't do BDS because then, the sanctions would hurt Israel's economy. Good. They still wanted to be there. Why?
That's the only way for Israel to be both Jewish and democratic, because if the state of Palestine provides the self-determination and the national rights and the individual rights and the future and the hope for the 5 million Palestinians who live in Gaza and the West Bank, and 2 million Palestinians who are citizens of Israel out of a population of 10 million are given full and equal rights like any minority in a democracy, this actually is a resolvable problem. It is not by definition that having a national homeland of the Jewish people there are so many countries around the world that have a national identity, a people who feel strongly as a people that gives their country a national identity. Doesn't make them all nationalist states.
Sure.
And
so here we go. Here he is now deflecting. Other countries have national identity and da-da-da. Right, but we're talking about apartheid and genocide. We're talking about, if you were against apartheid in South Africa, you should be against the apartheid in Israel. But see, people like him, they want you to pretend that these things aren't real. They want you to pretend as though Palestinians don't have different passports than the Israelis in Israel, the ones who do live in Israel. They want you to believe that even like there are Palestinian Christians in Israel, there are Palestinian Jews in Israel, and they want you to believe that all these people have the same rights under the law, and they don't. Israel doesn't even have a constitution. It's crazy to me, man.
But like, what in your view would happen? Let's say we get the two-state solution, right? And there's a division of the land as laid out by the UN. What happens if the Palestinian citizens of Israel start having too many kids? And now they're threatening to become a demographic majority within Israel. What happens
well, I mean,
then?
the biggest problem, ironically, the biggest problem that Israel has demographically is that the ultra-Orthodox are having too many kids.
Yeah, that's true. No, that is an issue. But I mean,
right,
you see what I'm getting at here, because I suspect.
But you didn't answer Krystal's question. She was asking you what happens if the Palestinians that live in Israel start having too many kids. Well, I'll tell you what'll happen. Remember the story that we talked about, how they sterilized the Ethiopian women in Israel against their will? Things like that. They'll probably implement something like that.
We have a big Christian nationalist movement in this country, led by Pete Hegseth and others who are in government right now. And I suspect you don't support that. So how do you support, a Jewish nationalist ideology when you would oppose that here, domestically, because you understand the way that would infringe on the rights of others who didn't meet the definition here in the U.S.?
Well, if that is the way that it's going to be implemented, I'd oppose it. But what I'm arguing, and we may not agree, but I believe, that the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel and the values on which it was founded and the basic laws that were established, the idea of it was that all 10 million Israeli citizens, whether they are Christian, Muslim, Druze, Jewish, Russian immigrants, Circassian, whoever they are, that they all have equal rights. It is the demographic fact that 76% of the citizens of the state of Israel right now are Jewish. And the other 25%, 21% are Arab, 4% are various other ethnic groups. This is the way other countries work too. I mean, you can run through a list of the 193 countries that are member states of the UN, and many of them have a population that has an ethnic identity that is 75, 80%, and at the same time have 20, 25, 30% of other peoples who live within their land.
And they don't have apartheid. See, this is the part that he's leaving out here. We had something like this in the United States. It was called Jim Crow laws. We had Jim Crow laws in the South. Yeah. See, sometimes people, they don't make the connection here, but we had our own form of apartheid right here in the United States. We got rid of the Jim Crow laws because it was unconstitutional. Israel doesn't have a constitution. You following me here? So since Israel doesn't have a constitution, they can't stand up there and say what is happening in Israel is apartheid and it's unconstitutional. So the comparison that he gave, it's not a fair comparison. Yes, there are countries where certain groups may be the majority and certain groups may be the minority. The question, though, comes is, what are the rights for the people that are in that country? Why is it Palestinians in Israel have a different passport than an Israeli? Why is it they can't move between certain spaces? Why are there all these checkpoints at the West Bank? Why are Israeli settlers going and stealing Palestinian people's homes? So let's not pretend that Israel was just fine Because like other countries, they have a majority population just like other countries do too. Okay? This is the liberal splaining. This is like that soft liberal racism that I was talking about. That's what this is.
Some states do better than others at providing those people with rights, and I would fight and be at the front line to ensure that the Arab citizens of Israel, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, have the exact same rights and the same opportunities as the Jewish citizens. And so,
no, you wouldn't. You'd be doing that now. No, you wouldn't. You would be doing that now.
I don't agree that having a state that has an ethnic identity as its identity is by per se going to lead you to Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich. In fact, 90% of Israeli Jews vehemently oppose Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir. And as I said, 75% oppose Netanyahu. And when they tried to take apart Israel's democracy and the rule of law and the independence of the judiciary, millions and millions of Israelis took to the streets in order to ensure that the functioning liberal democracy that they were brought up in would be maintained. So, I'm willing to fight for that. I'm willing to continue to be out there making the case that is a possibility. And I hope that the state of Palestine that's created next to Israel will also set up a structure that provides opportunity for all of its people to have equal rights and protects those rights and has the rule of law, independent judiciary, et cetera.
No, you need to give the land back to the people that you stole it from. You stole it, you took their resources, and now you want to tell them, well, I hope you do well. You set up a state on your own. This two-state solution, it's BS. All right. Every scholar, every Palestinian American that I have spoken to on this show about this two-state solution will tell you it is a farce. You cannot have a two-state solution because Israel don't approve it. In order to have a two-state solution, that also means that Palestine would have a military. Israel does not want the Palestinians to have a military. They don't want a two-state solution. So you can't have it as long as Israel's there. And no, it's not just Benjamin Netanyahu's government. You can watch Abby Martin's documentary to see for yourself. Max Blumenthal said it pretty well. Many of the people in Israel are actually to the right of Benjamin Netanyahu. They feel he's not going far enough. That's not the government. So this guy tried to worm his way here. And then let's get to this part here. I thought this was pretty much an epic takedown. Let's bring this part up.
Israel gets treated differently because Israel is an ally, right? That's the reason we won't sell defensive weapons or really do anything to protect Palestinians or Iranian civilians as we're bombing their little girls' schools or Lebanese civilians. One of the questions that I think the American people are asking, and I'm asking, is what are we getting out of this relationship? I view this more through a moral lens. I think Israel's committing a genocide as an apartheid state. I think it should be sanctioned the way South Africa was. I think that level of pressure should be applied to compel moral behavior. I think we should have international law. I think our willingness to observe and support the barbarism of Israel and Gaza has effectively destroyed international law.
Krystal has come further on this because she's right. It should be sanctioned. This is why I have, it rubs me the wrong way when people say they don't know. I don't support BDS. No, Israel has to be punished economically. That's the only way they're really going to learn. And that's the most nonviolent way to make them punish.
We get out of Israel being this key ally, given the fact that Israel has helped persuade the president to enter into this disastrous war, given the fact that Israel has helped to destroy international law. Why are we holding so tight to this alliance with an actor that is not only immoral, but has helped to foment a massive strategic disaster for the United States of America and the globe?
Well, I think what you're hearing me.
I'm sorry, but we got to drop the beat. We haven't dropped the beat in a while. We have to drop the beat here for this one. Let's go. Drop the beat. Dance with me. Dance with me. Drop the beat. In the street. Woo! All right. I'm sorry. Krystal does a really good job here. I think this is the end for this guy.
We say is that the U.S. shouldn't be having that kind of a relationship with an Israel that is doing the things that you're outlining. This Israel under Benjamin Netanyahu, the things that it has done over these last 20 years, by and large, they have hurt American national interests. What we want to see is a Middle East that ends these conflicts, provides Palestinians with an actual route to self-determination that begins to tap into the incredible opportunity Israel provides to.
Okay, if they want the Palestinians to have self-determination, right? Why isn't the name of the PAC called P Street instead of J Street? Why is the PAC a pro-Israel PAC instead of a pro-Palestinian PAC? You get me? Because it's very clear here, the Palestinian people are secondary to you. This is what I mean about the soft Zionism, okay? Liberals can be Zionists too. It's not just something that happens on the right. If you're so concerned and you want self-determination for the Palestinian people, why don't you have a PAC called P Street? Why aren't you trying to raise as much money as possible to help the Palestinian people? Because the candidates that he's putting in office, the candidates that they donate money to, they are voting for pro-Israel legislation. And they're sneaky because even if they may stand up and say, okay, I'm going to vote no for more weapons to Israel, this is ridiculous, it's a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Then they may vote yes for defensive weapons for Israel, which means you are allowing the occupier to fire multiple rounds and not get hit back. How is that any different than the offensive weapons? So he's sneaky.
The region to be a technological and economic engine of growth. We call it a 23-state solution. Can Israel become a functioning member of the region and work with all of its neighbors? The type of Israel under Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, and Smotrich that does what it did in Gaza, burning down the West Bank, fomenting religious warfare, convincing Donald Trump to go to war, that is not an asset to the United States, but it can be. When I say J Street is pro-Israel, we are advocating for a different future.
It just seems to
No. See, they're pro-Israel. That means they're pro the occupier. They're pro-occupier. They're pro-oppressor. Well, we're advocating for a different future in Israel. Okay, then why aren't you funding causes that are going to help the Palestinians if you want things to be different? No, because see, the thing is, they still want Israel to exist. This is what I was saying about the soft Zionism. They still want Israel to be there. They still want to be able to have that secure, protected state with a lot of intelligence, as we've been discovering over the past couple of weeks. We've been talking about the intelligence that's growing there. They still want to have that. They still want to be able to go over there and still have that citizenship and get their home in Israel. You see what I'm saying? Nobody else has this. Max Blumenthal spoke about this so well when he was talking about the birthright trip before. And he was talking about how quickly and easily it is for people to become indoctrinated at a very young age when you get that birthright trip. So they send them over there to Israel. And, you know, he said it was a lot of partying and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, you're brainwashing people that this is what they're supposed to have. This is what is owed to them. This is what is entitled to them. And then they come back to the U.S. and take that thinking and that mindset and feeling that there is nothing that you can do that is going to be wrong. All of this is owed to you. All of this is supposed to be for you. Anybody else get birthright? Do Black Americans get free trips to Africa, to countries in Africa? When we turn 18? No. Does any other group, do Latino Americans, do they get a birthright trip to Mexico? Do you get a birthright trip to South America? Do they? Anybody think about this before? Don't you think that's a little bit odd that one group in the United States gets a birthright? They get a birthright trip. when they turn certain age, they can go over there, from what I understand, for free. All expenses paid. You guys don't think it's true? No other group has this. And who's paying for that, I wonder? Does that come out of the millions that we give Israel every year? But they want to tell you you can't have health care. But they got health care. But if you mention it here in the United States, that's socialism. That's a bad thing, but they can have socialism. Okay.
Me to require a sort of suspension of reality to imagine the Israel that you're talking about. For example, you said you expect there'll be a new government in place that isn't as extreme. Naftali Bennett, the critique he's had of Netanyahu with regard to the Iran war is that he wasn't brutal enough. He's made plenty of his own racist, incendiary comments, whether it's with regard to Gaza or with regard to Arabs more broadly. If that's the moderate in Israel, it's just very hard to imagine without applying the kind of pressure like we applied and the globe applied to South Africa, and without using international sanctions and compelling different behavior. If you're relying on the democratic vote of Israeli Jews, 82% of whom support the expulsion of residents of the Gaza Strip entirely, we're nowhere close to the universe that you would like to see.
I, don't necessarily agree. It is in Israel's long-term interest, and this is the case that Jasher will continue to make, that Israel can only have a future worth it for the Jewish people if it compromises and allows there to be a Palestinian state.
Again, for what people did he just say? So remember how he was saying, well, the other people there need to have equal rights, but he's telling you again who the state is for. It's not for the other people.
Gets out of that is normalization of its relations with Saudi Arabia and the whole Gulf. It needs political leadership, and I will fight for it. I believe it's possible. I know there are examples in history of this happening. That's why we do the work that we do.
But at this point, when the reality of what Israel is doing on the ground is so different from what the liberal kind of vision for it is propping up that liberal vision of it, fueling a delusional level of support for the reality on the ground.
Only if one is not calling out that delusion. I do not spare any words in terms of describing just how awful these people are and what they're doing, how it violates every shred of my Jewish moral identity, everything that I've taught my kids about what it means to be a good person and follow the ethics and the morals of our people. I write about this every week. No one's giving up on the vision of what an America can and should be. I won't give up on the idea a state that is the national homeland of the Jewish people can also treat the other people who live there well and can live at peace with its neighbors, including a state for the Palestinian people.
But no, but you can't. Because here's the thing, again, if you say the state is for a certain group of people, obviously other people who are in that state are not going to be treated the same way. The state wasn't created for them. It was created for you. And why do you need the state? Nobody else gets this. Nobody else, listen. I'm Black. I'm a Black American, born in the United States. My parents were born here, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We go all the way back to slavery. We don't have a state. You're talking about 300,000, 300, 400 years of slavery. And even after they said the transatlantic slave trade, they said shut it down, they were still sending people. You understand that? They were still sending slaves in Charleston, South Carolina. They were still bringing them over after they ruled it. No, we have no state. Why do you get a state? Nobody else has this, man. Nobody else. Is it shocking? Yes, it's shocking to me that this guy actually thought that this was going to go well for him on Breaking Points. This is just so weird to me. I'm like, wow, because what you really showed people is, yeah, J Street should not be trusted. None of these PACs should be trusted. None of them. So this whole idea of peace that he's talking about, and you can see it here if you look at their website. When you look at About Us, again, they let you know who they are fighting for. J Street organizes pro-Israel, pro-peace, pro-democracy Americans to promote U.S. policies that embody our deeply held Jewish and democratic values. So first of all, let me make this bigger. Because see, I'm getting tired of this. Pro-Israel, pro-peace. There's no such thing. You can't be pro-Israel and pro-peace because Israel is only supposed to be for a certain group of people. So how are you going to be pro-peace when you got other people living there that are not Jewish? How's that worked out? Not happening. Pro-democracy. But I just told you, Israel doesn't have a constitution. So what are they talking about? This is what they're doing, trying to promote U.S. policies that help out Israel. Now, he said all that stuff about Gaza and the Palestinians and self-determination, but like I said, it's called J Street, not P Street. What a mess. I think we're going to have to do the fast speed on the next one too. I'm going to have to do speed because he talks for a long time. Sorry, guys, I'm talking to myself. Okay. All right, ladies and gents, we have one more story for you. I saved this one for last because he goes pretty deep. It's a timeline story, so that's why I saved this one for last. I don't want people to get lost in the sauce. But if you haven't had a chance to do so, ladies and gents, smash the like button. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share just like a Care Bear. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get into this Michael Jackson story. The Sony contract that Michael Jackson had later on became a problem. Now, Dr. Umar, which Dr. Umar can be all over the place sometimes, but he actually broke this down very well. Dr. Umar Johnson breaks down the timeline of what happened when Michael Jackson started to buy the rights to his music, the Sony contract, up into and after Michael Jackson's death. And what he believes is that Sony was allegedly responsible for Michael Jackson's death. Sound weird? Let's get into it. Everybody listen to what he says here. Again, we are going through the timeline of what happened to Michael Jackson with this Sony contract.
August of 1985. 1985. Guess what Michael Jackson decides he wants to do? He decides to make the biggest single publishing rights purchase in music history. Michael Jackson pays $47.5 million for the ATV music catalog. 4,000 songs are. This is August the 10th of 1985. Thriller came out November 29th, 1982. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records, 1984. So he's still riding Thriller art. He's still riding the wave. But Mike doesn't settle. Most entertainers would have done what? Chill with their money. Mike said, nah, I don't just want to be a musician. I want to own the game. I don't just want to be a musician. I want to own the game. So guess what he does? He buys ATV music catalog art, 4,000 songs, 125 Beatles classics, 125 Beatles classics. Elvis Presley's music, a sizable collection of Elvis music. Guess who else, Art? Little Richard, Bruce Springsteen, Cher, and a whole host of other artists. Art, he owns their publishing. Michael Jackson does this. It's the largest music publishing acquisition by a single artist in history.
And we have to remember the timeline. This is during the 80s, okay? So nowadays, when you hear about Taylor Swift buying her masters, it's not unusual now if you hear about an artist trying to do that. But this was back during the 80s. So just keep in mind, you know, I don't think Sony was too fond of this. Let's continue on.
It's 1985. So he's on top of the world, Art, on top of the world. And then guess what he does? A decision that he will regret. In 1991, he signs a 15-year, 6-album deal with Sony Records. A 15-year, 6-album deal with Sony Records. This deal, Art, will bring Michael Jackson $1 billion plus over the course of the 15-year contract. He owes him 6 albums. He gets 25% of the revenue share, and he gets to start his own label, right? Everything going fine. Then he makes another decision that I think he regrets, Art. So the 1991 contract, that's only for his own personal catalog. You with me? The 6 albums that include Thriller. That's the 15 years, 6 albums with Sony, 91. But guess what Mike does in 1995, Art? He allows Sony Records to buy a 50% share of the ATV catalog. Elvis, Beatles, Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen, Cher, Little Richard. Sony Records pays Michael Jackson $95 million for a 50% stake in the ATV music catalog. This makes Michael Jackson basically a 50% owner with Sony Records, right? My third rule of racism is what? White people don't share power with black people. White people do not share power with black people. Sony Records did not sign Michael to those 2 contracts. Sony Records, Art, did not sign Michael Jackson to those 2 contracts just for him to be with them for 15 years.
No, this is why I sped it up, because he repeats himself sometimes. But no, so just so you're keeping up with the timeline, we started with 1985. That was when he got the ATV catalog. And now we're in 1991, where he got the 15-year Sony contract. Again, that's for his personal catalog. And this is where the mistake comes in, where Sony wants to get like 50% of that share. Everything changes after this.
They brought him to the table so they could take over his music completely. And I believe, allegedly, let me say allegedly, I believe the same company was the cause of Michael Jackson's death. Allegedly, I believe that. Now, stay with me.
So everybody hear that?
As soon as Michael signs the contract in 95, Art, for the catalogs, he automatically starts falling out with Tommy Mottola. He's not getting his revenue share. They're not letting him make the decisions that he want to make, Art. Mike ain't feeling this at all.
Let's go to Tommy Mottola and I'll come back to him, okay? We have to remember Tommy Mottola was married to Mariah Carey. Now, let me bring up this picture here so people know who I'm talking about. That is Tommy Mottola. I figured it would help if I show you guys some pictures. Okay. So everybody doesn't know who Tommy Mottola is. That's Tommy Mottola, and that was Mariah Carey back in the day. They were married at one point. Mariah Carey said long ago, she said that Tommy Mottola was a monster. She said that way back in the day because she didn't, she was very young at that time. When Mariah Carey first had her first album, she was very young. And she said he was a monster. So this is who Dr. Umar is talking about, Tommy Mottola and Sony. Let's go back to the video here.
Okay. Now, Tommy Mottola, between 95 and 97, Art, Tommy Mottola says, because of these child sex abuse allegations, Art, we don't know if we can support you the way we would want to. Michael Jackson says, wait a minute. I got a 15-year, 6-album contract. I'm the #1 musician in the world, the #1 entertainer in the world, the highest selling album of all time. I'm the king of music, not just the king of pop. I'm the king of music. And we got a 50% stake in my catalog, and you don't know if you can support me? Guess what Michael says, Art? Mike says, no problem. Let me out the contract. I should have never signed with y'all anyway.
Okay. And this is where another problem happens. Michael Jackson trying to get out of that Sony contract. And I'm going to tell you who else this happened to too in just a second.
Michael Jackson tells Tommy Mottola and Sony Records, let me out the contract. They said, we're not doing that. October 30th of 2001, Art, Michael Jackson's last album, Invincible, comes out, right? Sony Records wants Michael Jackson to sign a contract extension. Michael Jackson tells Sony Records, I'm not signing no contract extension. I don't want to be a part of y'all no more. Y'all done already pissed me off. I want my catalog back. I want my personal catalog back. I want my ATV catalog back. And I'm done with you racist Neanderthals.
Pause right here. Okay, that's 2001 when the Invincible album came out. Let me tell you who else this happened to. And I just saw this just the other night. That's why I told you guys I've been waiting to cover the story, but I wanted to get a little bit more information. Does everybody remember this guy? I know some of you might be too young, but guys know I listen to old music a lot of times. You guys remember George Michael? George Michael. So this is Wham. Okay, so it was George, and I think his bandmate was Andy or something like that. I never remember the other guy's name. I think it was like Andy or whatever. George Michael, Wham was really big apparently, like back in the day, and like they had some really popular songs and all that jazz. And it was inevitable, from what I gathered from the docuseries, it was inevitable that George Michael was eventually going to become a solo act. He was the voice, the big voice of Wham. Dude sang some good songs. And so George Michael goes solo, and Andy, I guess, stayed back in the UK. George Michael comes to the US and broke all kind of barriers. He even his music crossed over into the R&B charts too. I don't know if people know that, but like songs like Father Figure and what's that Teacher Preacher song? What's the song that goes Teacher, I forget, but some of the older people in the chat, you know what I'm talking about. Like Careless Whisper, I think, was still with Wham. But it was only George Michael in the video. There's something about that too. But the Father Figure song, yes, like I will be your father figure, put your tiny hands in mine. Anyway, because of like his voice and the way that it was, some of his songs crossed over into the R&B charts. I won't spend too much time on George. I could do a separate video about him. But George Michael also at some point during his solo career ended up signing with Sony. Guess who tried to get out of their contract with Sony? George Michael. And Sony did not want to let George Michael out of the contract. George Michael took them to court. He lost in court. And then eventually, I think down the line, Sony finally said, look, this isn't worth the headache. Just let him go. But George Michael wanted out of his contract with Sony because George Michael said Sony was paying slave wages. Hello? Yes. Yes. Teacher. That's the song. The one that goes, Teacher, there are things that I still have to learn. I don't know the name of that song, but anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. The point is, it wasn't just Michael Jackson. They did this mess to George Michael, and also there are some suspicions around George Michael's death too, because I was reading about that and I'm like, I don't know. But back to MJ, right? They did this to George Michael. They did it to MJ. Prince had to go through this with Warner Brothers. The reason why Prince had changed his name to that symbol, years ago in his career, was because Warner Brothers wouldn't let him out of his contract. So Prince got smart and said, okay, I changed my name. Peace, deuces, and he's out. So Sony, they have a history of doing this. Okay, let's go back to MJ timeline. So now we're on 2001. His album Invincible comes out. MJ wants out of the contract.
Guess what Sony does? They extend their copyright. Something that the contract allowed them to do that Michael Jackson didn't know that they could do, Art. And I want to say this, Art, right here, right now. Michael Jackson's attorneys were secretly working for Sony Records, I believe. Let me say allegedly. I believe Michael Jackson's attorneys were working for Sony Records. I'm going to tell you why, Art. Michael Jackson, when he signed the contract in 1991 for his personal catalog, he was under the assumption or the understanding, based on what his lawyers told him, that he would get his masters back in 1999. Michael Jackson thought he was going to get his masters back in 1999. He finds out around 1999, Art, that he's not getting his masters back until 2009, the year he died.
Oh! So this is the bombshell. They extended it 10 years. Just like that. No. We know we told you 1999, but now it's going to be 2009.
Are you following me on this, Art? Let me say that one more time. Let me say this one more time. Michael Jackson thought he was going to get his masters back in 1999. His lawyers played him. He finds out in 1999 he's not getting his master recordings back until 2009, the year he died. I think
I'm following you. Thank you. It's called One More Try. That's the name of that song. See, I know some George Michael fans in the house. So everybody see that, right? Okay, let's go to part 2. So now we got to fast forward. And let me make sure I put this on the faster speed as well, because I'm sorry. Because like I told you, he repeats himself a lot, right? So let's hear, close that out. Let's fast forward. We're going ahead a little bit. Here we go.
He's trying to get out of his contract with Sony. He will not extend the rights with Sony. After he gets acquitted from the charges, Art, he moves to the Middle East, Bahrain, whatever they call it. At the invitation of a king over there, Michael goes to the Middle East with his children. He visits his brother Jermaine Jackson, who's living in Dubai at the time. Michael Jackson, realizing with the 25th anniversary Thriller album, Art, he can make enough money to pay off his debts with Sony, get his catalog, start his own music company, take over the world.
Pause. Someone is asking, how were the lawyers able, how were they able to change the date? Was it legal? I don't know, but this might be what Dr. Umar is referring to when he says that he thinks that Michael Jackson's lawyers might have been actually working for Sony too. You know, it's something to think about.
He initially agrees to 10 concerts, or 10 of them. But because of the demand, the concert promoters asked Mike to do a 50-city tour. Michael Jackson says, I'm going to do it. This is going to be my last tour, and I'm going to call it This Is It. He moves to Las Vegas. He's living in Las Vegas, 2007, 2008, Art. He's living in Las Vegas. He start preparing for the tour. Because in his mind, Art, I get my masters back when, Art? The end of 2009. Sony Records has to give me my master recordings back 2009. My Thriller album is out. I'm back on top of the world. I'm going to do these 50 stops on this tour, make all this money, pay off my debt, get out of Sony, and start a whole company under my own name. You with me, Art? He makes a mistake, Art. He decides to move back to LA so he can practice at the Staples Center.
This was the downfall of everything. When he was in Dubai, he was basically safe from all of the craziness. But it is that moment that he moves back to Los Angeles. After the end of this part, I'm going to go back to what happened with Eminem too. I think you guys might find that really interesting. But I didn't even know that MJ was living in the Middle East. But apparently he was at some point in time. Listen to this part.
The reason he wants to practice at the Staples Center, Art, is the Staples Center has all of the technical amenities that Michael Jackson needs in order to fully practice his tour. Because as you know, he's very elaborate with the special effects, the stunts, the dress rehearsals, and he's a Virgo. He's a Black August baby. August 29th, Mike is a perfectionist. So he says, we got to do the Staples Center because I can do it right at the Staples Center. Now check this out, Art. The tour was supposed to begin March of 2009. Michael Jackson pushes the tour back. This was fatal, Art. This was fatal. Michael Jackson pushes the tour back from March of 2009 to July 13th of 2009. See that? So he's going to hang around in Los Angeles a few months too long. Art, if he gets on that tour, they can't get to him. If he gets on that tour, Art, in March, they can't get to him. But when he decided to push the tour back so he could practice and perfect the stage performances, that gave a certain music company enough time to plan Michael Jackson's demise. And on June the 25th, 2009, Art, exactly 2 weeks and 4 days before the first concert. 2 weeks and 4 days before the first concert, a black doctor helped him overdose on Provolol, I believe it is, and Michael Jackson was unalive. Art, are you going to tell me it's a coincidence that Michael Jackson dies 2 weeks before the first concert? He dies a few months before Sony was due to return his masters. Look how convenient this is, Art. Look.
So watch this video if you want to see the full thing, but the timeline, like the way he laid it out there, it all makes sense now. And it's scary, like when you look back on it. I had always believed that Michael Jackson was killed. I didn't believe this was an accident from this doctor. I had always believed that Michael Jackson was killed. Michael was a danger to the people in power because, again, he wanted ownership. You see, these record companies, they love you. They, especially during this time, they love you when you wanted to do a little song and a dance and extra videos and all this kind of stuff. But the moment you start asking for ownership, that was a problem. Guys, we have to remember, this is before a lot of people were streaming music, right? So this is before like Spotify really blew up. Like during that time, people were still buying CDs, compact discs. And so the record companies, especially back then, are like, no, we trying to get every album sale that we can get. Nowadays, it's different because nowadays people are not buying CDs. People are streaming their music. Just about everybody, I think. I don't think anybody's buying a CD, right? So now when you hear someone like Taylor Swift is buying her masters, you got to realize what people went through to get there. It's a little bit more common to say that now. But at the time when Michael Jackson was trying to buy his catalog, that was not a thing. He was ahead of the curve. And then on top of that, some of those record executives kind of look down on those artists and like, oh, you're trying to be a business person now, especially during that time. They just want you to sing and dance. Once you start to say, I want some ownership, whoa, no. Now you're asking for a little bit too much. I still remember exactly where I was when my friend called me and told me that Michael Jackson died. I was at Walgreens. I'll never forget that day because I my heart just sunk, and not just because it was Michael Jackson, but because I believe they killed him. Janine said it here too as well. Sam Cooke is another one. They murdered Sam Cooke for trying to get ownership. I'm trying to tell you, people don't want you to, they love you to sing and dance. If you want to be an actress and you want to just act, maybe they'll let you do a little bit of directing and write some scripts. But once you start talking about owning your own studio, hey, no, that's a little too much there, buddy. A little too much there. Now, here's the scary part. When we go back to the Eminem part, so I have to go back now. We're going back. Like I said, Dr. Umar says some kind of weird stuff sometimes, but I follow this timeline to the T. He was really good about this. Let's get to the Eminem part here.
You know where I'm going with this. I think you know where I'm going with this. So now, Art, Tommy Mottola tells Michael Jackson, if you don't extend your contract, we're not going to finance Invincible. Michael Jackson said, I'm not signing no contract extension with you devils. I want out. So they sabotage Invincible, Art, to put him in debt. Why did they want Michael Jackson in debt? To try to force him to sell his personal catalog and the joint ATV catalog, Art. Sony Records was bankrupting Michael Jackson to try to force him to turn over all of his music. They signed with him to destroy him and take his music. Same thing Warner Brothers did with Prince, allegedly, that led to his premature execution. Stay with me, Art. So 2001, Invincible comes out. It goes several times platinum, but that's a flop for Michael Jackson, right? So the next year, Michael Jackson has a protest in New York City with Al Sharpton, and he calls Tommy Mottola, the head of Sony Records, a devil and a racist. You remember that, don't you? He called him a devil and a racist, and he said that he called Irv Gotti, rest in peace to Irv, Murder Inc. He said he called Irv Gotti a fat ninja. Yep. Now, Art, the year after Michael Jackson has that protest against Sony Records in New York where he calls Tommy Mottola a racist and a devil. That was 2002, July. Guess what, Art? The next year, he's arrested for child sex molestation. You're not going to tell me that's a coincidence. Right after the protest, the next year, he's arrested for child molestation. Right after Diddy settles with Diageo Liquor, Diddy is arrested on federal. You see how this works? Same thing they did to Michael Jackson, they did it to Diddy. Stay with me, Art. So Michael Jackson is arrested in 2003. In 2004, Eminem, the white Jesus of hip hop, Eminem attacks Michael Jackson.
I couldn't believe he called Eminem the white Jesus of hip hop. But anyway, let's go. This is what I mean about Dr. Umar, but let's go on.
He comes out with a song called Just Lose It, 2004. He's mocking Michael Jackson's surgery. He's mocking Michael Jackson's child sex abuse charges. And he's even mocking Michael Jackson's hair being burned during that Pepsi commercial. I'm sure you remember that. Now, in 2007, Art, I don't know if this was in retaliation for what Eminem did to him or not, but in 2007, Sony ATV, which is Sony and Michael Jackson, they purchase, Art, the Famous Music LLC catalog. Guess what this gives them, Art? 125,000 songs. 125,000 songs, including who? Eminem's entire back catalog, all the way up until his 2004 Encore album. Michael Jackson and Sony owns the publishing of all of Eminem's records up until that time.
I thought you guys would find that interesting. But you can watch. I'll show you where you can see the full video, just in case you guys want to watch this.
Basically, you make a mockery of me.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. It's on The Art of Dialogue. It's called Dr. Umar Sounds Off on the Michael movie and responds to people mad the allegations weren't covered. Yeah. So this is a really good video, and I'm just going to tell you guys there's so much more that's here as well. But here's the thing. Following the timeline now, it all makes sense. And have you guys noticed, even after that Michael movie, they're still trying to come for his estate? There's a Netflix documentary called The Day Michael Jackson or something like that. It's supposed to premiere first week of June. They're going to talk about the allegations. Michael Jackson was acquitted, and they still keep this going. You see what I'm saying? Because they still trying to pull from his estate. So he may be dead, but he still has his estate. And they're like, whatever, we will come after him forever. Do not forget the Palestine song. Remember, I told you Michael Jackson wrote a song called Palestine Don't Cry. They wouldn't let him publish that song, from what I understand. And if the dates line up, it would mean that he wrote that song before the first allegations came through. So people can call it a conspiracy, call it whatever you is, but I just think a lot of these people are evil. I think a lot of the people at the top are evil, and I think that's how they got there. A lot of these CEOs, a lot of the people who have ownership, we'll call them the ownership class. I think a lot of these people are evil. Mariah Carey, she can be kind of crazy sometimes nowadays, but she said this long ago that Tommy Mottola was a monster and apparently abusive as well. So these are not safe people. These are people who, especially they're at the top and they have ownership, they want to keep that ownership to themselves. They want to control it. They do not want to share it. And, sometimes I think about what he said, like what would have happened if Michael didn't push those dates back? It makes you wonder. All right, ladies and gents, that is it for me. I think Eric's going to come on. He's going to read the remaining super chats, and I will see you guys on Sunday Fun Day. Yeah.
Was there an announcement?
Oh, yeah. Just a reminder, guys, mutual aid workshop is Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And I sent out the first link. I already sent it via my newsletter on Wednesday. I'll send another newsletter about it on Friday afternoon. So if you missed that one, you should be able to get it on Friday afternoon. To get it, you just make sure you're signed up for my Substack. And that should be good to go. Yeah. So I'll send it again tomorrow for those who didn't get it on Wednesday. I'll send it again tomorrow. And that is it.
And yes, be signed up to that Substack. Get all the inside info.
All right.
All right. Good stuff.
All righty, guys. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.
Keep up that fight. All right. We're going to let Sabrina go on with her night. I'm going to do a little show close here. Maybe talk about a couple things here and there. Let me see what I got here. Let me get to the right spot. What did we talk about tonight? Yeah, we definitely had a lot on that, on Norm Finkelstein and the whole Israel thing, where he's coming from. There is, there is this whole idea of like, should Israel exist, or what does it mean to say that? And I would say, well, how we should talk about it is, should Israel exist as an apartheid state, right? I think that is, maybe a key qualifier here, because, we don't want to be mistaken for people who are calling for, a different kind of thing to happen. But, with that guy from J Street, like what occurred to me is like, maybe if you went back 20 or 30 or, decades back, maybe there was a chance you could have talked about putting Israel on a path to liberalization and to having real equal rights for all. I mean, even then it was really kind of kind of too late because of what had gone under the bridge. And you have really the basic, maybe original sin in a way, or of Israel, is that it's at its core, it's a colonial settler state. And you really can't get past that. Like, that really would have to be reformed in a core way. And it just seems like you have people in these conversations that are like not dealing with that directly. Anyways, let's see. I do want to make sure I note here that we had, where is it? Here's the thing I want. Just, when was that? It was just yesterday. How time flies. Just yesterday, Corey and I were on with, let me bring that up here, with the great Nico House. Yesterday we had a great conversation there. If you're subscribed to the 11 Demand Substack, which I would encourage everyone to do, you would have gotten an email with that in it, and notifications. It ran live yesterday at noon Eastern. But yeah, it was a really good conversation. You can see a little what it looked like here. If you go to the 11 Demand site, like here, like if you wanted to just find this right from scratch, you would go to 11demands.org, and you see the good stuff here on 11demands.org. Actually, while I'm here, I'll say, look, if you look at 11 Demands and you go down to End the Wars, end support for all governments that engage in settler colonialism and genocide. So connecting into what Norm Finkelstein was trying to sell, I would say the 11 Demands answer is there, in a sense. But if you're going on there, where am I going? Here we go. Go back. If you get into 11 Demands Substack, and if you click through into the Substack site itself, where you can see like the very latest, please do subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Then there it is, video of our conversation with the one and only Nico Housebus. So do check that out. Yeah, it was really, we got into a lot of things. I think also we're going to work on some more conversations with Nico, in one fashion or another. Maybe we'll get another 11 Demands panel in or something like that. So we got some things happening in the works here. One of the things we mentioned on there, I think at least, I don't know if we got to this on there, so I did want to bring this up. There was the other day the whole thing with data centers, and there's the MCDS response or an analysis, right? If you want to do an MCDS analysis on data centers, right? You got M. The billionaires want to reap the profits while the 99% pay the costs. You get to see the corruption, right? They control our corrupt government. You got the D, that we need to have clear demands. The demand, we need a government that serves the 99%, not the top 0.1%. If you have a government that's operating that way, it's hard. Then they start doing things like regulating data centers and doing things for the 99%. It's about interest. These data centers are being built and regulated and put out there for the billionaire class and their playthings, the mega corporations, and that is this core problem. We need a demand a not totally corrupt government. And the solution, we need a mass movement based on those clear demands and with a strong focus on corruption. The other thing, after the show when we were on, actually noticed there was a super chat that came in on Nico's channel, and it was from a guy. I have the text of it here, but he was saying that what he was saying. Actually, I got it over here. Here, let me just see what it had. Yeah, so it was a chatter called Iron Will Strength 12, who said in his super chat, he said he was a former Trumper and he's centrist libertarian now. He says, my hang up with socialism, communism is this: why would we willingly give the government more power than they already have? I'm hoping to learn more. And I was just, I just found that comment interesting. And I think an answer to that is, it's about what government is. It's about how we view government. One of the things that Ronald Reagan famously did is he put up this thing saying, oh, the government's terrible. And the government, if someone comes and says, I'm from the government, I'm here to help, like, that's supposed to be scary. Well, it is if the government isn't working for you, if the government isn't working in your interests. And that's really the key factor. It's gotten so far and so far down the line here there that people can't even imagine a government that works in our interest, the 99%, like it's supposed to. And people can only see a government as being corrupt and oppositional. A big part of the goal, the mission of 11 Demands is to say we need to be demanding a government that actually works for us, for that 99%. And so, I just wanted to say that the answer to that question, which is a good question from that person who sent in that super chat, thanks for sending that in to Nico's channel, is that we need to expand our thinking a bit into what government can be, what government should be. And the way we get there is, first we have to imagine it, and we have to see what it could be, and we have to demand that kind of a government. We have to say, we need an end to the corruption. We're not going to support or vote for anyone or any movement or any party unless they are recognize the problem, call out the corruption. And if we can get that kind of a movement going and get some real decorruption of our government and make it into something that really works for us, then these possibilities open where you can have a government that gives us the things we need: our health care, our education, our things like even job guarantees and things like that. So check it out, that stuff and more stuff like that at 11demands.org. Check out our conversation with Nico, and we're going to continue to have these conversations about these things and try to get these questions and answer these kind of questions. All right, let's see what we got on for these super chats, because we got a few things built up. Let me do this one from the Rumble first. Let's see. I think I want to put that on there. Do a little of that with it. All right. Thanks for the rant on Rebel Hempcar, who says Dick Gregory said MJ was killed with a laser, and there's a link in there. If you go on Rumble, you can follow the link. But thanks for that one on the Rumbles. Let's see. We got a few of these here in the YouTube queue. Super chat's built up. Thanks for the super chat. Kevin Wayne's going back to the Norm Finkelstein story, saying Norm thinks that BDS hurts a two-state solution. I disagree there. I hear you. Thanks for that one, Kevin. Thanks for this one from Emrish, who says, I am Palestinian and not PhD. Read my simple blog, New Perspective, NeoCities, org, April 26th, and says, I love Norm. He is worried for his people. All right. And thanks for this one from Mr. Marlon Wells. Thanks for the super chat. He says, extreme supremacy. They are the opposite of everything they claim to be. A never-ending nightmare to the world, just saying. And, I always want to also connect this with the Israel and Zionism to billionaire power. I still think it's really important to point out that the reason Israel is this way and Zionism and has this lobby and this seeming control or corrupt influence on our government is that Israel is a pet project of the billionaires. If you don't have that billionaire money, then you don't have Israel existing as it in its form today as this apartheid settler colonialist state. We're not going to be able to fix the situation in Palestine if all we view it as is an Israel problem or even as a Zionist problem. I think it's really important to connect it to the billionaire problem. And by that, I mean that billionaires just have much too much wealth and influence and resources, and they corrupt our government and they make our government operate and do things that they want the government to do, not, rather as opposed to the things that are good for the 99%. I think it's really important to make that connection because then you can start talking about solutions. if all you see this is as a BB Israel Zionist problem, that really, or even if you see it as a problem with a certain ethnicity, that really doesn't lead you to solutions, right? That doesn't really tell you what we can do about that. When you make the connection that it's a billionaire problem at the core of why these things are happening, then you get into solutions, and the solutions, are to fix that wealth inequality, to fix that corruption, and it gets us to a place where it is possible to fix it. So that's why I think it's really important to make the connections all the way up. Thanks for the super chat, Jason B. He says, why does Ryan look like he's about to puke throughout the whole interview? He's thinking I'm going to get some phone calls. Yeah, talking about that J Street guy. Yeah, and it's they're trying to have it both ways. So what I put in the chat is they basically want it to be a kinder, gentler genocide. Is really what they're after. Thanks for this one, Marlon. It says they are not even a democracy, war crime dictator. And thanks to the super chat, Wasim, who says, that is a lie. Ben Gvir is up in the polls ahead of Bibi. Also, West Bank, 48 Israel and Gaza, along with refugees in the neighborhood countries, outnumber the Israeli population along with the diaspora. All right. And we got a few more here. And thanks for this one, Kyron, who says, hey, Sabby, what are your thoughts on Netflix releasing Michael Jackson, The Verdict documentary? I think she did mention that. And a shout out to Sandra for being a member for 8 months. And they say, YouTube refuses to send my message twice. I guess it's too factual regarding Israel. Yeah, there is a built-in YouTube censorship. It's kind of like a censorship AI they have built in, and certainly it hits on certain keywords, and even as like moderators, we can't get around that censorship. And if you put in something that the YouTube automatic censorship doesn't like, yeah, it just silently squashes it. And sometimes it's really silly that there'll be things that are outright you would think would be that it shouldn't let through, and it does, and then there'll be other silly things. I found that it really dislikes the term mass movement, which kind of tells you about what they're after. But there you go. Thanks for this one, Marlon. Who says, anything less than supremacy is anti-Semitic, OMG. Yeah, that's a pretty good framing, I think, Marlon. Thanks for this one from Murdog. He spares no criticism for the Jewish state, but refuses to say genocide. Yeah, you see, they have to be careful about saying what it really is, because once they start using that term, then they become obligated to deal with it in a real way. Thanks for this one, Kevin Wayne. The 13th Amendment has a loophole for prison slavery. There you go. Yep. And we got a few more here in the queue. Kevin Wayne says, Sony is run by Japanese. All right. And thanks for this one, Clarissa, who says, MJ, the youth today prefer being independent. All right. And thanks for this one, Marlon. He says, I don't often agree with Dr. Umar. But in this case, I do. All right, Marlon. Thanks for that. That is just about do it for today. Here, let me see if I can leave you with a funny one before I go. Do I have it keyed up here? Yeah, here it is. I do the Twitter X can be an interesting place. Like you can, it does key in on what you tend to like, or intend to click on and watch. And so, YouTube has figured out Twitter X has figured out that I do like the occasional funny cat video. And so if it may be, I don't know, sometimes people make the joke, this is the reason why I have a Twitter X account, is the cat videos. But anyways, this one, people might have seen it before, but we'll look at it for a laugh. So this came across, and this one they call the difference between a cat and a dog eating. All right. eating a treat. Let's see. All right, so here's the treat. We offer it to the cat, and they give it a little sniff, and maybe, yeah, my cat's like this. Keep us like this, you know. Maybe think about it. Show it to the dog. Oh, gone. All right, so there you go. We'll end it with the difference between cats and dogs in a nutshell. That's going to do it for us tonight. The next live show you can catch Sabby should be on Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll see what we got for you then. And I want to thank everyone for listening and watching. And yeah, do always check out the old 11demands.org. Subscribe to the Substack. If you're really a fan of 11 Demands, there's the 11 Demands Collective that you can check out and sign up to. It's about a way of thinking, that MCDS 11 Demands way of thinking. And of course, tune in here and subscribe to the Substacks. Thanks everyone for listening, watching my silliness, and we'll see you next time. Until then, have that good night, keep up the fight, and we'll see y'all soon. We'll say peace and out.